You should just rent a cheap apartment and live there. After all, someone who just plays around at home doesn't deserve to live in this house," said Susan, who had returned from the city. She was now attempting to drive me out of the house where I was living with my in-laws, planning to take my place. My in-laws, who don't understand working from home, and my husband, who wants to take the house from me, are all siding with my sister-in-law, Susan. Together with Susan, my husband Mark and in-laws keep blaming me. Do they even realize who is paying for this house's mortgage? That's when it struck me, if I left, who would pay the monthly mortgage of $4,600? There's no reason for me to continue living with these people who make me feel so terrible. If they want me to leave, then I'll leave. I've endured enough, and finally, my anger has reached its peak. "I'll change the ownership and mortgage to your name," I told my husband. With that, I divorced my overjoyed husband Mark and left the house. Little did they know, they would soon face an unexpected situation. My name is Emily. I used to live with my husband Mark, who is 2 years older than me. I met Mark while working at a company. However, it wasn't the typical office romance, as Mark was working for the cleaning company that serviced my office. When I met my husband, I had just lost both of my parents in quick succession. First, my father was diagnosed with an illness and the doctors gave him only 3 months to live. While caring for him, my mother fell ill too, and despite her fight, they both passed away, leaving me alone. Having no siblings, I suddenly found myself all by myself, struggling to accept the reality that my parents were gone. After their passing, I would often find myself thinking of them at random moments and tear up. However, I tried to hide my feelings from those around me who were being considerate. I think I forced myself to smile all the time while at work. The first time my husband Mark spoke to me, I was trying not to let anyone notice as I stood in the hallway during a break, staring blankly outside the window, lost in thoughts of my parents. I had seen Mark at work before and we had exchanged nods, but we had never spoken, and I didn't even know his name. Yet, Mark approached me as I looked out the window and asked, "Are you okay? You seem a bit down." In response to my husband Mark's gentle inquiry, I found myself talking about my parents. Maybe it was easier because he was a stranger whose name I didn't even know. When Mark heard about my parents passing, he sympathized, saying he was close to his own parents and could understand the loneliness. I was glad that Mark listened to my story. After that, we started having brief conversations whenever we saw each other at work, and it didn't take long before we started meeting outside of work. Soon after we started dating, Mark introduced me to his parents. As Mark had mentioned, he seemed to have a good relationship with them. His parents, aware of my loss, were considerate and invited me to visit them anytime. I quickly grew close to my in-laws, and without a formal proposal, it naturally led to me marrying Mark. After the wedding, we rented an apartment near my in-laws and started our life together. After getting married, I quit my job and switched to a company that allowed me to work fully remotely from home. I did this considering the possibility of having children with Mark in the future. I told Mark about my career change, but it seems he didn't quite understand it. For now, he just knows that I work from home using my computer. Since my salary didn't change after switching jobs, I decided to take care of the living expenses. Mark earned less than I did, so we agreed that I would pay for our expenses, while Mark would save his salary, except for what he spent on social activities. Mark didn't have any expensive hobbies, and before we married, his social expenses were mostly just dates with me or going out with friends. Mark himself said he was okay with me managing our savings, so this is how we handled our finances. Working from home was all positives for me. Above all, I was happy that I could enjoy leisurely meals with Mark when he came home. This wouldn't have been possible if I were still working at my previous company. Before marriage, I often made simple meals just for myself, but now, wanting to please Mark, I find myself wanting to cook more elaborate dishes. Our life together was passing by peacefully. Then, a few years into our marriage, something shocking happened. My in-laws' house was completely destroyed in a fire. Fortunately, my in-laws were unharmed, but they lost not only all their possessions but also irreplaceable memories like photo albums. For a while, my in-laws stayed in our apartment, and they were deeply upset. I wanted to cheer up the two people who had helped me heal from the loss of my own parents, so I did everything I could to care for them. I cooked, of course, and also took care of the household chores during breaks from work, making sure they felt comfortable. On weekends, Mark and I would go out with them. However, my in-laws were conscious of being a burden and struggled to regain their usual cheerfulness. They often mentioned that they couldn't stay with us forever and were concerned about imposing on us. So, my husband Mark and I decided to build a house to live with my in-laws. Until now, my in-laws had never brought up the idea of living together, but in one way or another, Mark and I had been considering it. In preparation, I had been saving from my salary, separate from the savings my husband was making. Thinking it was better to get a mortgage sooner rather than later, I suggested that we use this opportunity to build a house. My in-laws were delighted, and the conversation quickly came to an agreement. The house they had lived in was a charming wooden structure built by my great-grandfather. It had been fine when they were younger, but as they aged, they started experiencing various health issues. Therefore, they had many requests for the new house. Mark, too, wanted to add various features, thinking that if we were going to build it, we might as well do it right. Ultimately, the cost ended up being much higher than anticipated. Still, convincing myself that we would be living there for a long time, I agreed to build a house that met all three of their requests. I began to sense something was off around this time. Mark was excessively claiming to his parents, Karen and John, that he was the one building the house, and they were constantly thanking only him. Even though the house and the mortgage were in my name. The down payment came from my savings, but it seemed like Mark hadn't mentioned this to Karen and John at all. Perhaps because of Mark's insistent claims that it was his house, Karen and John started pressuring me to thank Mark as well. I do appreciate Mark, not just for the money aspect. I paid more because I was able to. Not because I wanted gratitude from Mark or Karen and John. However, even when Karen and John said such things to me, Mark didn't stand up for me. Instead, he jokingly said, "That's right, you should be grateful to me for letting you live in a new house." I was definitely upset after being repeatedly told falsehoods. I understand that Mark has his pride, so I didn't ask him to tell his parents the entire truth. But I did ask him to stop making it seem like I was doing nothing. However, Mark, perhaps feeling more confident because of our new house construction, just wouldn't listen. And then, I found out that Mark was telling a terrible lie to his parents. Incredibly, he told them he worked at the same company where I used to work. The company I worked for is considered a well-known major corporation. True, Mark still has dealings with that company, but as I began to notice Mark's lies and his inflated pride, I started to feel increasingly distrustful of him. I also felt uncomfortable because his parents always seemed to favor him. Still, I thought once we moved into our new home, the issue of who built the house wouldn't come up anymore, so I just kept enduring patiently. However, once our new home was completed and we started living there, their attitude towards me clearly began to change. It seemed like my in-laws, just like Mark, didn't understand the concept of working from home. They thought I was just playing around because I didn't go out during the day and was always at my computer. Mark had been complaining to them that Emily is just playing around all day, and they seemed to have completely believed it. Before we moved, they never said anything, maybe because they felt I was taking care of them, but the sarcasm increased as soon as we moved. They say, "Mark built such a fine house, and you just stay in and play around. Must be nice. Why don't you work a little and help Mark out?" Even when I was working on my computer, they would come to my room just to make these snide remarks. The discomfort made me leave the house more and more, working from a cafe instead. I repeatedly appealed to Mark to clear up his parents' misunderstanding. While Mark might not understand the work I do, it's my salary that's supporting his and his parents' lifestyle. All I needed was for him to tell his parents that. But Mark just said, "Just let them say whatever they want," still not listening. Since I was supposedly not working, I got saddled with all the housework, and his parents started bossing me around. I couldn't take it anymore and finally stood up to his parents. Mark was there too, and I thought he would finally take my side, seeing how upset I was. But instead, he yelled at me, "Don't talk back." Then, he thrust a completed divorce paper at me, threatening divorce if I didn't comply. I had never seen Mark so angry before, and his behavior completely intimidated me, making me succumb to him and his parents' demands. From that day on, both his parents and Mark's attitudes towards me turned utterly cold. The only time I felt seen and could find some solace was when I was working at my computer. I immersed myself in work to forget the treatment I received from my in-laws and husband. One day, my sister-in-law Susan, who had been living in the city, came back to visit. She was coming to see the new house and planned to stay for a while. My in-laws immediately started complaining about me to her. They say, "Emily is always cooped up in her room, playing on her computer. Does she even realize whose generosity allows her to live in such a nice house? What on earth is she doing on that computer all day? Playing games? Is she some kind of nerd? That's just weird. We don't really understand all this, but maybe she's one of those nerds, you think? If she's always on her computer, she must be one, right? Isn't she ashamed of not working?" Trying to escape their loud conversation, meant for me to hear, I went to my room. Then I heard something even more shocking. They said, "Wasn't Emily just a cleaner at Mark's company? It's amazing how she lies about working from home. She couldn't possibly have the skills for that." Susan was talking as if my and Mark's roles were completely reversed. Since Mark had told his parents he worked at a major corporation, maybe he had also lied that I was a cleaner. The real liar here was Mark. I wanted to tell this to Karen and Susan, but given everything that had happened, I doubted they would believe me, so I just gave up. Ever since Susan came to visit, my place at the dining table was taken over by her, and I couldn't even eat at the same time as everyone else. While they ate the meals I prepared during my work breaks, I would be secluded in my room, continuing my work. This went on for a week, and the day for Susan to return to the city came. But suddenly, Susan declared, "I'm gonna live in this house too. After staying here, I found it quite comfortable. I just quit my job, so I've decided to move back here," she said. Susan had been working in the apparel industry, but she got tired of the interpersonal dynamics and decided to take a break. Susan's family home was being rebuilt, so when she returned and saw our new house, she found it more luxurious than she had expected. "Leaving the city to start a business here could be good. At my level, I can work from anywhere," she said. My in-laws, Karen and John, were thrilled with Susan's words. Mark seemed quite pleased with the compliments about the house too. However, there was no designated room for Susan in this house. Until now, she had been staying in the guest room, but if she were to live here, another room for Susan would be needed, and the house had no spare rooms. Susan had realized this after living with us for a week. She told me, "I'll live here, so you should leave," Susan said with a smug, malicious grin. "People who just play around at home don't deserve to live in a house like this. You should find some cheap apartment somewhere and live there." "No, this house is mine because That's a good idea. You do nothing but stay at home all day, every day." Karen sided with Susan, leaving me no room to argue. I tried desperately to explain my job, but Susan, who had just said that work could be done from anywhere, wouldn't understand about working from home. Just because I'm not going out, they say I'm not working. They're trying to corner me with such an absurd argument. After everything that's happened, I'm really starting to get angry. Mark doesn't try to speak the truth, just stands there, laughing and watching the situation. Until now, I kept quiet, considering Mark's position, but I finally told Karen, John, and Susan that this house was built in my name. "I'm paying for all the mortgage and all the living expenses. The down payment came from my savings, and Mark hasn't paid a single penny." Seeing me speak up to this extent, Mark was clearly panicked. However, the only things that came out of his mouth were words to berate me and self-serving statements to hide the truth. He shouted at me, calling me noisy, telling me to shut up, calling me a liar. Mark was obviously flustered, and it was clear he was hiding something. Yet, Karen, John, and Susan still defended him, calling me the liar. No matter how many times I said it wasn't a lie, they would not believe me. That's when it struck me, if I left, who would pay the monthly mortgage of $4,600? There was no reason for me to continue living with these people, enduring such unpleasantness. If this house is supposedly built by Mark, who works at a major corporation, maybe it should all truly be his. With that thought, I decided to sign the divorce papers that Mark had pushed on me again, intending to threaten me. When I offered to change the house's title to Mark's name, he was so delighted he almost danced. He must have thought the house would now fully become his own, in name and reality. He's not wrong, but Mark is misunderstanding one thing. Initially, to change the mortgage to his name, we tried to go through the process together, but Mark disliked the complex procedures and told me to handle it alone, reluctant to go. Just you go and listen to all that complicated stuff. It's just a name change, right? Get it ready for my signature only, he said. Since that wasn't possible, I took the reluctant Mark to the bank and a legal professional for consultation. Throughout, Mark didn't listen to the explanations and just played with his smartphone. When it came to signing the documents, he finally became eager. If I sign this, the house will be in my name, right? He asked me. After I confirmed, he happily signed the documents. Once all the procedures are completed, both the house and the mortgage will finally be Mark's. I've explained it several times, but I wonder if Mark has truly realized it. He was ecstatically reporting to Karen, Susan, and John. Even after hearing this, how can they still believe that Mark works at a major corporation and I'm unemployed? I watched this scene with a feeling of astonishment. After changing the house and mortgage to his name, I filed for divorce. We're going on a trip to commemorate this, so you better move out while we're gone, Mark said. Waiting for the procedures to finalize, Mark took Karen, Susan, and John on a ridiculous divorce celebration trip. They were apparently going abroad and wouldn't be back for about 10 days. During that time, I sold all the furniture and appliances I had brought into the house and packed my belongings into the car, ready to leave. While handling various procedures in parallel, I was also looking for a new house and moved immediately after packing my belongings. The place we chose for our fresh start is the top floor of a high-rise condo. It was a stroke of luck that this mansion, worth about $5 million, was available. However, I thought it must have become available just for me, given the timing, and I decided to boldly purchase it. For the past few years, living with Karen, John, and Mark had been restless, so I was thrilled about my new life ahead. In fact, I had an inheritance left by my deceased parents. I had been investing using that inheritance even before marrying Mark. Initially intended as just a way to earn some pocket money, these investments turned out to be a huge success, and now my assets amount to several $million. I had planned to use that money for a relaxed, early retirement with Mark in the future. I had kept this asset a secret, intending to surprise Mark, but now I'm truly glad I never mentioned it. If I had told them, Karen, John, and Susan might have joined forces to take my assets. Living with that family, I painfully learned just how careless they are with money. The house I lived in with Mark and his parents was decorated mainly based on their preferences, so it wasn't to my taste. With the move to the condo, I took the opportunity to create a space I love, carefully crafting the interior to my liking. Now, it has become the perfect space, surrounded only by things I adore. Above all, there's no one around to make snide remarks, so I can happily work from home. Once things settle down, I'm planning to join a cooking class or yoga studio. Finally, in this enjoyable and free time, I have regained a peaceful mind for the first time in years. The call from Mark came the night they returned from their trip abroad. He must have realized that the furniture and appliances were gone upon returning home. He demanded them back, but I paid no attention. Everything was bought with my money, so it's my prerogative to do what I want with it. I didn't want to leave anything of mine in the house of those who had caused me so much suffering, not even the furniture and appliances. Of course, they were unnecessary for my new home. When I told Mark that I had already sold them, he still demanded, "Buy them back immediately." "It's impossible. You, working at a major corporation, should just buy new ones," I retorted and then hung up the phone. That day, Mark called several times, but I ignored all of his calls. Months had passed since Mark and his family returned from their overseas trip. I had completely forgotten about my previous life and was having a great time, getting along well with my neighbors. That day, I was returning from a cooking class I attended, invited by a friend who lived on the floor below. Suddenly, I received a call from Mark, and although I was suspicious, I answered, thinking there might be an issue with the paperwork that needed attention. I answered the phone, and immediately Mark shouted in a loud voice, "What is this all about?" It was just like the day they returned from their overseas trip. Wondering if there was anything else besides the furniture and appliances that could have angered my husband, I decided to listen closely. It turns out, he had finally noticed the amount of the loan repayments. When he opened the letter that had arrived at the house, he saw that the loan repayment amount was listed as $4,600 per month, which is why he called in a panic. "Wasn't the loan already paid off?" he exclaimed. "Of course not. The bank explained everything clearly, didn't they?" "That's impossible. I never heard about it. And with the fire insurance and your savings, why didn't you pay off the mortgage?" "No way, that's impossible. Do you even realize how much that house was worth?" Shockingly, it seems Mark believed the mortgage was already paid off. Despite the bank's detailed explanation, which Mark had nodded to, he was apparently under a different impression. I was sitting right next to him, watching and listening, so I remember it well. Even if Mark wasn't paying attention, he already signed the mortgage transfer, so it's too late now. Mark kept trying to find a way out of the mortgage payments, but there was nothing I could do about it. Eventually, he seemed to realize that he had no choice but to repay the loan, and fell silent, seemingly frustrated. "I thought you'd be struggling to find a place to live," Mark said, clearly under the impression that I was in a dire situation. The reason Mark could freely spend his salary until now was because I was the one covering our living expenses. Even after our divorce, I have no trouble living on my own. It's too late for him to realize that he was relying on me for everything. I wonder what kind of life my pretentious ex-husband Mark has been leading these past few months with his parents, Karen and John. Most likely, they were living luxuriously, doing whatever Susan suggested. And then, he realized there was a mortgage to be paid. I wonder what Mark is going to do now, I thought, as if it were someone else's problem. Since we're practically strangers now, I couldn't care less about how much trouble my ex-husband and his parents, Karen and John, are in. Seeing my husband so frustrated, I decided to tell him the truth. "Too bad. I moved into a luxury condo with the money I made from a successful investment." Then, while he was speechless, I hung up the phone. There were no calls from him after that, so I thought he had managed somehow, but then, out of the blue, he called again. When I answered, wondering what it was about this time, turns out their house had been seized, and he was in a panic. In the background, I could hear the voices of his parents, Karen and John, and his sister Susan, all sounding pretty desperate. "What should I do? Help me, Emily." My husband, whom I had kicked out, desperately pleaded. A person claiming to be an enforcement officer was visiting the house, and I could hear the voices of his parents, Karen and John, and his sister Susan in the background, also addressing the officer. According to this officer, the house was about to be put up for auction, with details like the auction date and bidding period to be decided. Once the auctioneer was determined and ownership transferred, my husband and his family would be evicted from the house. I thought they must have received warning letters leading up to this, but when I asked my husband, he sounded confused and said they hadn't arrived. However, that couldn't be right, and after persistent questioning, he finally admitted in a small voice, maybe they did arrive. It turned out he had intentionally ignored the letters, realizing they were about loan repayments. "The envelopes were already open before I saw them. I thought someone was taking care of the payments. Probably, Karen, John, and Susan thought the same as my husband. Eventually, a demand for the lump sum repayment of the loan arrived, and it seems my husband and his family were aware of it but continued to ignore it, thinking someone else would pay it. And so, the house was finally seized. Can't you do something now, like pay it off? You could pool everyone's savings, there's got to be a way. I said, unable to hide my frustration at my husband's helpless tone. But all he could say in response to my suggestion was, "It's impossible." Apparently, Karen and John had squandered their savings on an extravagant overseas trip and were planning to rely on their son, who works in a big company, for their future. It was all just their assumption. And Susan, his sister, who claimed she had quit her job to come back home, was actually fired for embezzling company funds. She talks as if she's been hugely successful in the city, but in reality, she was just a modestly paid accountant in a small to mid-sized company. Yet, she got hooked on visiting nightclubs, gradually embezzling money from her company to splurge on them. Even though she actually returned home relying on her parents, Karen and John, she had the nerve to make such grand claims. As for my ex-husband, after our divorce, he pretended to be working at a large corporation and started dipping into his savings to cover living expenses. Both Karen, John, and Susan lived lavishly, and the money he had saved while we were married was completely gone. Then came the demand for the lump sum repayment of the loan. As our previously hidden financial situations came to light, it seemed like the focus was shifting from the court case to each other. In the midst of this, my ex-husband started clinging to me. Please, Emily, you're living in that high-rise luxury condo now, right? Let's all live together there again. I refuse. We're divorced now, and as far as I'm concerned, we're strangers. Although I felt a bit sorry for him earlier, I definitely don't want to live with those people ever again. Hearing the voices of my ex-in-laws, Karen, John, and Susan, from the background, I felt more resolved. And so, I firmly declined my ex-husband's offer. Upon hearing my refusal, Karen, John, and Susan immediately started hurling insults at me. I heard various derogatory terms like heartless, scammer, thief. Perhaps out of spite for being rejected, my ex-husband joined Karen, John, and Susan in berating me. The noise over the phone was unbearable. Despite everything being the result of their own actions, there was no sign of remorse from them. Eventually, all four of them started a blame game, leaving me out of it and beginning to argue among themselves. I decided then and there to never involve myself with these people again, quietly hung up the phone, and blocked my ex-husband's number. A few days later, I came across a concerning headline in a corner of the newspaper. The article about a father and son getting into a fistfight and the police being called out made me suspect it was about my ex-husband and his father. I decided to contact a mutual acquaintance of ours who lives near my ex-in-law's home. Sure enough, the incident reported in the newspaper was about them, and it happened after I had hung up the phone on my ex-husband. The article mentioned that a neighbor noticed the fight and called the police, leading to their arrest. My ex-husband, his father, along with Karen and Susan who tried to intervene, all sustained injuries that would take about 2 weeks to heal completely. After receiving a stern warning from the police, they were released, but the incident making the newspapers meant my ex-husband, although not fired, faced severe reprimands at his workplace. The cause of the parent-child fight was embellished and quickly spread throughout the company. My ex-husband feels uncomfortable at work, but can't afford to quit due to financial necessities. Eventually, a buyer was found for the house, and they were forced to move out. Somehow, they managed to find a new place, but it's an old, cramped, bug-infested apartment, a far cry from their previous home, where the family of 4 began their new life. Bugs appearing daily in the room are causing Susan and Karen to make such a fuss that they have already received complaints from the neighbors. They tried to work and rent a new house quickly, but both in-laws and Susan seem to get into trouble at work and end up being fired. Especially Susan, with her past of embezzling company funds becoming widely known, is finding it difficult to get rehired. It looks like they will have to continue living on my ex-husband's income alone. My ex-husband seems to be trying to find out where I live, asking our mutual acquaintances persistently, who have warned me to be careful. Even if my ex-husband finds my condo, he'll just be turned away by the full-time concierge. I gratefully accepted the advice from my acquaintance and made sure to ask the concierge to be on the lookout. With this, the turmoil with my ex-husband and his family finally comes to an end. It hasn't even been a year since I left that house, but it already feels like a distant past event. I've completely adapted to life in my luxury condo, enjoying my days filled with hobbies and work. I plan to enjoy my carefree single life for a while, without thinking about marriage. My name is Eleanor Smith. I've been married for 5 years. At 30, I'm still childless and feeling increasingly anxious about it. But my husband says kids are just a hassle and expensive. We don't need them. Let's buy a house instead. He talks about it as casually as if he's suggesting getting a pet. No second-hand homes for me. It's gotta be a new build. And once it's built, my mom's gonna move in with us. That's settled. I don't quite understand his decision-making process. But my husband is absolutely obsessed with owning our own home. My husband, George, is an only child, so I anticipated living with my mother-in-law eventually. I don't particularly dislike her, and I thought there wouldn't be any issues. Therefore, I agreed to move forward with buying a house. We carefully planned the layout to ensure a peaceful family life, even paying attention to things like the direction the house faces. The home we built is something I'm satisfied with. And so, my mother-in-law moved in, marking the start of our new family setup. However, problems started to emerge as soon as we began living together. My mother-in-law's personality, which I hadn't noticed in our infrequent meetings, became glaringly obvious. She wouldn't return my morning greetings, re-cleaned areas I had already tidied up, and criticized the way I cut vegetables in the kitchen. If I did it her way, the next time she'd insist on something entirely different. Maybe she's just trying to teach me. But then again, maybe she forgets what she said due to her age. I tried to think that way. However, as time passed, I started to wonder if bothering her daughter-in-law was her hobby. She always had something to complain about, no matter how trivial. She constantly nitpicked everything I did. Whenever I tried to take a shower, she would try to do so at the same time, or she would decide to leave the house at the same time I planned to. She even said that staying home was my duty as a daughter-in-law, so I was forced to change my plans. I eventually spoke to George about these issues, but he wouldn't listen and even yelled at me for speaking ill of his mother. Half a year passed, and both George and his mother stopped speaking to me altogether. It's like I don't exist, with no conversation or interaction. My mother-in-law talks cheerfully with my husband, but the moment I enter the room, they both fall silent. When I sit at the table for meals, she lets out a big sigh. The vibe's off, isn't it? Speaking of which, since Eleanor's not here, I gotta say, she's really incompetent. George, why'd you marry such a woman? Living with her is driving me nuts. Something happened? The lights in the bathroom are always left on, the water's running all the time. And clothes are strewn everywhere. How was she even raised? That's terrible. I'll talk to her next time. It's no use. She'll just deny it and make things unpleasant. The truth is, I haven't done any of that. In fact, it's all my mother-in-law's doing. She blames everything on me, and my husband believes it all. As a result, we've been getting along poorly lately, even sleeping in separate rooms. The reason given was that there are plenty of rooms in the house. Sure, we have spare rooms for future kids, but I never thought it would lead to marital separation. This meal's awful. Maybe Eleanor's cooking doesn't suit your taste, Mom. She might be taste deaf. If I have to eat this lousy food, I'd rather eat out. Yeah, let's get some yummy seafood. And so, my cooking remains uneaten, and I eat alone every day. In the vast room, only the TV seems to talk to me. What a pitiful life. Why am I being ignored? What did I do wrong? I just don't get it. There's a limit to how much to be ignored. Recently, the stress has gotten so bad that I've developed alopecia areata. It was supposed to be a happy marriage, but here I am, stressed to the point of losing my hair. Who could have imagined this? One day, when I returned from work and tried to unlock the front door. What? It won't open. I could insert the key, but it wouldn't turn. Strange, why is that? I tried several times, but it just wouldn't budge. Then, I heard laughter from the other side of the door. Are you there? The key won't turn. Can you open the door, please? I expected to be ignored, but I couldn't start dinner without getting inside. And I knew I'd get snide comments if I didn't cook, even though no one would eat it. Please, open the door. But contrary to my expectations, I heard her voice. You're not needed here anymore. What? Don't you get it? You're not needed anymore. That's why I changed the locks, so you can't get in. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. What do you mean by that? It's simple. This is no longer your home. So, please go somewhere else. After that, I heard nothing more from my mother-in-law. What's going on? I muttered, bewildered as I returned to my car. I tried calling my husband. But even though the phone rang, he didn't pick up. No matter how many times I called, there was no answer, leading me to suspect that he and his mother were in cahoots. Knowing those two, it must be true. They're really going to this extent to drive me away, which is just too much. If they wanted me out, they should have discussed divorce, but there was no talk of that. No choice, I guess I'll stay at a motel for the night. I resigned and drove to the motel. Lying in bed, I felt even more confused. I hadn't done anything to deserve this treatment. In fact, I had been the one putting up with things. I tried contacting my mother-in-law again. And also my husband. But to no avail. I tried calling at different times, even when I thought my husband would be home, but he still didn't answer. What's happening? Do they want to break up? If so, they need to tell me because I can't understand without any communication. Days turned into a week, and I still couldn't reach either of them. This is costing me a fortune in motel fees. I don't want to worry Mom, but I have no choice but to go back home. So, I decided to return to my parents' home for the time being. But that house is mine, too. If this continues, I'll keep paying the mortgage without living there. This is ridiculous. After much thought, I decided it was pointless to keep paying the mortgage and resolved to sell the house. I contacted a friend who was a realtor, and they said they could quickly sell it. Well, it's bound to be lower than the purchase price, considering it's been 3 years. I reasoned with myself, preparing to hand it over to the realtor. It's not fair to sell the house without telling George and his mother. If they were suddenly told to vacate, they'd be in trouble too. Even though they had done the same to me, I couldn't bring myself to do it when I thought about their predicament. I'll just text them on Messenger, and if they don't read it, then I'll go through with it. I can't keep taking care of everything forever. So, I messaged my husband and his mother about my decision to sell the house. Expecting to be ignored. But surprisingly, right after sending the message, I got a reply from my mother-in-law. What the heck is this? Hi, it's been a while. How dare you say such a cliché? Well, I couldn't think of any other way. What's this all about? Why are you selling the house? It doesn't make sense to keep paying the mortgage when I'm not living there. You're supposed to pay it, aren't you? Why should I? Because you built that house. True, but then I guess it's my decision to sell it, right? That's ridiculous. We're living here. That's why I'm telling you about it now. I wouldn't want you to be suddenly forced to leave. Of course. We'd have nowhere to go if you just kicked us out. I was in the same situation, you know. What are you talking about? About the time you changed the locks and I couldn't enter my own house. That was necessary. We really don't need you around. What an attitude. Even after doing such terrible things, she doesn't feel any guilt. Anyway, there's no need for me to keep paying the mortgage anymore. I'll be selling the house soon, so please prepare to move out. I won't allow that. Even after that, a flood of messages from my mother-in-law kept coming and pressing me hard. But I didn't respond to any of them, completely ignoring her messages. I've said what I needed to say, and whether they move out or not is their own decision. However, that night, my husband called. It seemed he thought I stopped replying because it was a text conversation. Hey! What's this all about? What do you mean? You must have heard from your mother. Besides, am I being kicked out of the house because you want a divorce? We're not talking about that right now. Don't change the subject. I won't allow you to sell the house. But this is my house. But the house is in my name, isn't it? In your name? What's that supposed to mean? Don't you remember when we were building the house, and we discussed whose name it would be in? You said you'd handle the living expenses, so the mortgage should be in my name. Oh, right. That's true. But what does that have to do with the ownership? Didn't you say it would be too much hassle to arrange the paperwork in your name? And when I said if the house was in your name, you'd have to pay the taxes, you didn't want that. So, you insisted it be in my name, remember? Yeah. I guess I did say that. But even if it's in your name, I'm living here. And we'd built this house together. But I, the owner, am not there. It's absurd to keep paying the mortgage after being kicked out. That's why I've decided to sell it. There's nothing odd about it. It's a house built for the family. Then are you going to take over the mortgage payments? If so, that's fine by me. Back then, my husband left everything to me. The house's title, the taxes, the paperwork, and the mortgage. Everything was made to come to me. Now that I can't enter the house, it's unnecessary for me. Don't be ridiculous. I'll never allow you to sell the house. Then let's have a proper discussion. If we continue living separately, it needs to be decided whether we get a divorce or not. My belongings are still there, after all. Above all, I don't like this uncertainty. All right, that makes sense. Come over tomorrow, then. So, I stepped into that house again, but I was faced with a shocking truth. Let's settle the divorce issue first. My husband said, presenting me with a blank divorce form. He probably searched for the website and downloaded it. He really intended to divorce. Staring at the divorce paper, I couldn't decide whether to sign it or not. Should I make it this easy to end the marriage? I had anticipated something like this, yet I hesitated. What's the matter? Hurry up and sign it. I can't be married to a woman who does things her own way. I disliked what you said yesterday, and that made me want to divorce for sure. So, it's all my fault, is it? What are you hesitating for? Take it quickly. Yes, hurry up and proceed with it. We don't need a selfish woman like you. That's when it happened. The front door opened, and a woman's voice said, "I'm home." Moreover, she entered the living room carrying bags filled with vegetables and meat. "Oh, do we have a guest?" "Sorry, I didn't notice," she said, noticing the divorce paper on the table and smiling unpleasantly. Ah, the ex-wife. Finally ready to agree to the divorce, right? Excuse me? You not divorcing George meant I couldn't marry him. Right, George. Wait, what does this mean? George always told me you wouldn't agree to the divorce. Of course, that makes sense. At your age, remarriage must be difficult. Clinging to the role of a wife, I get it. What are you talking about? What do you mean, what? You know George and I have been together for 3 years, right? What? 3 years. Around the time this house was built? Since then, George has been asking you for a divorce. But you just wouldn't agree, making it hard for me to marry him. Clinging to this house just because you want it. How greedy can you be? Listening to her, Things started to make sense to me. So, you started being harsh to me right after we moved in with your mother because you wanted to remarry with this person. You had a girlfriend? What? You didn't know? What do you mean? George, what is she talking about? Oh, she's just confused. Probably doesn't remember what we talked about. Ah, I see. That's why George was so tired of her. Yeah, that's right. Isn't it, Mom? That's right. George never liked you. So, you all have been deceiving me. No, it's not like we've been deceiving you. It shouldn't matter if she came into the house. You left on your own. Left on my own? You're the one who changed the locks and made sure I couldn't get in. But you still chose to leave. I see. I understand now. I took a divorce paper and put it in my bag. Then, I'll be selling this house. That's ridiculous. This is my house. The divorce has been decided. Since the house is in my name, it's my right to sell it or do whatever I please. No way. Then transfer the title to me. There's something called division of property in a divorce, right? Just give me the house and we can end this. Do you really think you can afford the mortgage on this house? What are you talking about? If you can pay, why can't I? Don't say something stupid. Really? Are you sure about this? Yeah, I don't care. Anyway, if the house stayed in your name, you'd do something bad with it. You're that kind of woman. All right, then. I'll give you the house in the property division, and I'll take the house savings. In exchange, I'll leave the furniture and household items. Well, okay. My husband had no idea how much the mortgage was. He never bothered to check. He didn't care about how much I had been paying each month. And now, with this other woman in the picture. Once this house is gone, he'll likely never own a house again. My husband must have thought he could win over the woman with the house as bait. Once the house is gone, it's clear she will look down on him. That's why, even if he has to give up his savings, he wants to keep the house. What a foolish man. The lowest of the low, he deserves to go to hell. A month later, I received a call from George. To my amazement, he was frantic about the mortgage not being paid. Hey! What's going on? The mortgage isn't paid. What? That's none of my business now. The house is yours. What are you talking about? The title might be mine now, but the mortgage is yours. What? Why would that be? I just asked for the title. I never said I'd pay the mortgage. That's why I asked if you could afford the mortgage. You said it would be easy, remember? What? Is that what you meant? What else could it mean? I asked if you were sure, but now there's nothing you can do. The mortgage. I have to pay it? Why did you think I would be paying after that conversation? How selfish can you be? How much is the mortgage each month? It's $2,000 a month. $2,000? Half of my $4,000 salary is going to the mortgage? Exactly. How can I live like this? My allowance, her allowance. You give her an allowance? Of course. Of course. I never got an allowance from you. But you were working. Then she should work too, right? No, she can't. She's a natural-born lazybones. I can't ask her to work. Ridiculous. Then you have to figure it out. I'm divorced from you now, so it's not my problem. Don't say that. I'm curious. Where did you two meet? How do you even have a connection if she's jobless? We met on a dating site. You were on a dating site? Yeah, well. So, you met there and had an affair? Well, yes. This is not funny. We're divorced now, so it doesn't matter. I can't believe you wanted to marry someone like her. The same goes for her. When we were married, things were fine, so I thought it would work out. I was working, remember? Well, do as you like. I don't care anymore. 6 months passed. Without any contact from George. I thought he and his wife must have managed to get by. However, what George said next was completely unexpected. It's no good. What now? Actually, I was planning to use Mom's savings to pay the mortgage. But she doesn't have any savings. Oh, your mother, she's quite the social butterfly. Exactly. She said in the past 3 years, she's been traveling, going to bars, and eating at fancy restaurants. She doesn't have any savings left. I see. When I asked her what she planned to do, she said she thought it would be okay because I was there. I see. When I asked about her pension, it turned out to be just a tiny amount. Maybe you should get your new wife to work? Yeah, I realized this situation was bad, so I asked her to work. Then she said it's terrible to ask her to work since she's never had a job before. She said she married me because I promised she wouldn't have to work and that I'd support her as a housewife. But she doesn't even do any housework. Well, she's a cute wife, isn't that enough? She's always fighting with Mom every day. Your new wife fights with your mother? Yeah. In the end, Mom loses and does all the household work. Wow, she even defeated her mother-in-law. That's some strength. Too strong. This is unsustainable. Well, that's what you chose. Don't say that. Please, lend me some money. What? You're asking me, a stranger, to lend you money? You must be joking. We're strangers, why would I lend you anything? You should have your own personal savings. Well, I spent a lot to win her over, and now my savings are gone. How foolish can you be? I thought you would keep paying the mortgage, so I believed everything would be fine. And yet, why did you cheat and get a divorce? Your actions are completely nonsensical. I thought you would keep paying even after the divorce. I believed you wouldn't abandon me because you're kind. That's some wishful thinking. Who in the world, after being dumped, would still support their ex? That's just not happening. You really won't lend me any money? Of course not. No one lends money to someone with no prospects of paying back. Fine. Then I'll borrow from a payday loan service. Do whatever you want. It has nothing to do with me. The debt collectors will come to your place? What? Why would they come to me, a stranger? That's not going to happen. Despite his nonsensical claims, 6 months later, he came to see me directly. I borrowed from a payday lender. It seemed he had really borrowed and was trying to make it work. But I can't make the repayments. How much did you borrow? I borrowed enough for the short term, but then the next month's mortgage payment came, and I ended up with both the payday loan and the mortgage. That's to be expected. The debt collectors are relentless. I feel like I'm going bald. Interestingly, my alopecia had settled down, and my hair was growing back in. That must have been the result of my resolution to get divorced. I told the debt collectors to go to you since I couldn't pay, but they refused, saying the debt was mine. That's too obvious. Please help me, I'm desperate. George begged. Why not ask your new wife for help? She already left the house. What? You just got married and she left that quickly? She couldn't stand the situation, and she took all the little savings, anything that looked valuable, claiming it was her share of the property. Oh dear. And now the real estate agent is telling me to leave the house. Why? That woman, she used documents without permission and sold the house on her own. She ended up running off with everything. Oh dear. Your wife was smarter than you. Come on, help me out. No way. George and his mother eventually had to move into a shabby apartment. For a while, he seemed determined to find his runaway wife and recover the money from the house sale. However, despite all his efforts on the internet, he never saw her again. Eventually, tired George realized that he had to focus on repaying his debts. Despite both him and his mother working, she couldn't stand such a life and got hooked on a dating site for seniors, moving in with a man she met there and starting a new life. Quite resilient. And so, George was left with the harsh reality of his mortgage and debt collectors. He started working a night job in addition to his day job. Resigned to his fate, he focused on making regular payments. However, to make him suffer more for what he did to me, I demanded spousal support, which I hadn't claimed yet, $60,000. He protested, saying he couldn't pay, but when I threatened legal action through a lawyer, he somehow managed to pay. As a result, his debts increased and he's worn out. It's only fair, considering how much he made me suffer. And me? I'm still working. Vowing not to fall for another foolish man who relies on a woman's earnings, and am currently searching for a new love. My name is Emily. Recently, my husband William got promoted, and I sent him a gift to celebrate. I had been feeling something was off about him for a few months, and the day after I gave William the gift, his true colors were revealed. Hey, why was the gift I gave you yesterday just sitting in the trash? You thanked me for it when you received it yesterday. Didn't you like it? Huh? Whatever. Why do you have to check up on every little thing? It's my gift, so I can do whatever I want with it, right? Besides, it was probably some cheap stuff anyway, so I threw it out. So, it looked a bit bulky, but it didn't seem like much. Was it just you trying to suck up because I got a promotion? I really can't stand that about you. I had no idea you thought of me that way. Well, you wouldn't have trashed it like that otherwise, right? But are you sure that was a good idea? Seems like you're the one who's gonna have a problem. You're being too persistent. I said it's fine, so it's fine. The content seemed like paper anyway. You don't mean there was a paper in there worth thousands of dollars, do you? If you're gonna spend money on unnecessary stuff, you might as well spoil me more. Yeah, well, sure. If that's what you think is best. Then, just to be clear, I want you to check what was inside the gift. By the way, you just casually said you can't stand me. Did you mean that, or was it just in the heat of the moment? Man, you're so annoying. I've been saying it all along. Did you seriously think I was truly in love with you? To be honest, I don't need you or our child anymore. I just got married and had a child for social status. Our daughter is already 5 years old, so maybe it's time to live separately. Divorce is a hassle, so let's just live apart. I'm tired of playing the husband and father role. I've made it this far in my career, so I deserve to be free. I'll pay child support, so you guys manage on your own. That's pretty selfish of you, isn't it? Who was it that cried with joy when Olivia was born? Who said they would cherish their family forever? To change your mind so drastically in just a few years is truly frightening. That kind of preaching is exactly what I'm tired of. So, what about the gift's content? It doesn't matter anymore, right? I've already thrown it away. What, you want me to say, oh, it was just some cheap thing after all? That's the kind of annoying stuff I'm talking about. As my wife, you should just listen to what I say. Always contradicting me, saying I'm wrong. Don't you know the phrase respect your husband? You always scold me without considering the time, place, or occasion. Don't you realize that hurts my pride? When I say no to Olivia, it means no for you too. I have to explain it out loud because you don't get it. And about not considering the time, place, or occasion, I do feel the atmosphere. I've thought about staying silent, but everyone's making faces like say something to him. Didn't you feel that? Of course not. What have you been looking at all this time? When have I ever been looked at like that? My promotion is thanks to my hard work and big contracts. It's not just seniority. A person like me wouldn't be annoying to others. You've never really seen me. Oh really? Then you might be happy with what was in the gift. It might have seemed cheap, but it's not worthless to me or you. I can't speak for everyone, but here, open this one. If you still think it's pointless, I'll throw it away. Oh, so you didn't just pick it up. Having two of the same cheap things, huh? Fine, whatever. It's gonna be the same result anyway. We'll see about that. Huh? What's this doing in here? What, you mean the photos of you cheating? Don't you recognize your own face? Let me tell you then. In those photos, you're the one drooling over someone else. And I know it's you. We'd been together for at least 7 years. No, that's not what I mean. Why do you have this? This kind of photo should only be known to us. Oh, so you do remember? No, it's not like that. Fine. But seriously, how long are you just gonna stand there? You know the bag with the same stuff is in the communal dumpster, right? Yeah, you're right. I can't stand here chatting with you. I gotta go now. With that, William rushed out of the entrance and headed for the dumpster. But it was already too late. Hey, I will ask the landlord give me back that envelope. I just accidentally threw it out last night, but it actually contains something really important. Look, the landlord's dumbfounded face. He's frozen because you talked to him. See, he's holding the envelope you threw out and comparing the photos of you and the real you. Hey, what the hell are you staring at my photos for? Don't look at me. Give it back, now. That's a terrible way to speak. You're the one breaking the rules, yet you're taking it out on the landlord. Can't believe this. And aren't you embarrassed, making a scene on this busy street? Me, embarrassed? That's none of your concern anymore, right? After all this, you're still worried about me? You shouldn't care about me anymore. A normal person wouldn't do what you've done. Yeah, well, a normal husband wouldn't cheat so casually either. And I think a normal husband wouldn't just throw away a gift from his wife, right? You're the one who strayed from normal first. How can you make it sound like I'm the bad one? Are you nuts? You weren't like this before. You used to be kinder, more considerate. Why did you become so cold? Hey, I never thought I could be this cruel either. But if you think about it, you'll know why. Maybe things would have been different if you had thought about me a little more. So, what, you just want to make me the bad guy? Have you ever thought that maybe you're the reason I had to do this? Can you honestly say that you're completely blameless? Don't you ever think that your actions drove me to do this? What? Are you blaming me now? That's not what I'm saying. I'm asking if you can honestly say you've done nothing wrong. You're always blaming me. Doesn't Emily have any faults? But I'm the one always getting yelled at, always feeling bad. Don't you think that's unfair? This is a completely different matter. And you know, trying to make me the bad one? You're the one at fault here. Why did you do this? What about me didn't you like, especially when we have our child? Explain it to me in a way that I can understand. If you're going to blame me, you need to explain yourself first. Don't say you too. I have all the evidence in these photos. Everything in these photos is what you dislike about me. And since you wanted a divorce, I included a lawyer's contact too. What? You went that far? But you need a witness, right? Who did you ask? Really? Yeah, really. That's why I gathered all this evidence. You're unbelievable as a human being. Huh? Isn't that obvious? I had to tell your mother first, so she wouldn't be shocked. It was faster to have your mom and my mom know it. Unbelievable. You're not even thinking about what happens to me. I hate your selfishness. Now I have nowhere to go back to. You've just been gathering allies for yourself. Have you ever thought about what happens to me next? Why should I think about your future? You're the one who did this without thinking. Why can you just shift the blame onto me? You created this situation. And yet, why am I the only one getting blamed? Oops, it's time for me to go to work. In this situation, how can I go? Think about it. Let's go inside. It's weird to talk about this here. Let's go inside and sort this out. Why? We've come this far, why go back inside? Let's talk here. There's nothing else to talk about, right? All the evidence is here. There is the lawyer's contact. All that's left is for you to agree. It's the natural outcome for you. You wanted a divorce from the start, so just agree happily. Why worry? Just go inside already. What happens if we don't? Is there something wrong? No, not exactly, but... Then let's just talk here. It's not like it's too cold or hot. All you need to do is agree to divorce amicably. It's not that hard, is it? If you're thinking we can talk this out and rebuild, you're dead wrong. I have no intention of getting back together with you. Honestly, I don't even want to breathe the same air as you inside the house. Talking out here is all I can handle. I've been holding back all this time, so read between the lines. Stop talking nonsense and let's go back inside. Stop making a fuss. Just listen to me. Looks like your ride is here. Look behind you. Good morning, William. Huh? Mary? Aren't you going to say hi? She's calling your name. Huh? Emily's here too? Good morning. It's trash day today, isn't it? Can't forget about it. When I start living with William, I have to follow the rules, right? What? Yeah, Mary. The landlord here is strict about rules. If you don't follow them, you'll get scolded. Right. I'll be careful. But why have you been silent all this time, William? I came all this way. Aren't you going to hold my hand and say good morning like usual? What's this? Mary, how do you know Emily? I was planning to keep quiet until you were officially divorced. But Emily said the divorce is happening soon, so maybe it's time to spill the beans. Emily's your neighbor, right? When I posted on social media, hoping you'd get divorced soon, she reached out to me. Since she lives next door, she offered to help with the divorce. So, I sent her pictures of us together, even your sleeping face, loads of them. Ever since Emily told me, I've been looking forward to it. You two talking here means you've heard everything, right? Why? That's how it is. I've known who you were all along. This girl openly posted your face on social media, even wishing for a quick divorce. I've never seen someone so lacking in literacy. But maybe that worked in my favor. What? What are you talking about, Emily? Explain it to me in a way I can understand. What's literacy? What worked in your favor? Mary, it looks like the divorce is going to happen soon. Once this guy agrees the divorce, we're all set. Wow, Emily, that's amazing. I never thought you could make the divorce happen so quickly. Come on, William, you said your wife is boring and only cares about the child. I'm cuter, younger, and her selfishness is adorable as you said. Hold on, Mary. If I were your husband, I'd have dumped a wife like that in a heartbeat. If I'd been William's wife from the start, I wouldn't have let this happen. I was disappointed when I found out William had a wife, but I was happy when you asked me for private lessons. You prefer me, right? Every time we meet, you say you like me better. So why won't you agree the divorce? Please, just stop. Why? You said you'd marry me once you got promoted. You said your salary would increase and we could still have kids. I've been waiting for almost a year. My birthday is coming up. If you plan to propose then, divorce her quickly. I absolutely don't want a half-hearted proposal from a man who's still married. Look, Mary's saying it too, so just agree it already. Mary won't wait forever, you know? A younger, prettier face is better, right? Mary will get older too, and it's better to have kids sooner rather than later. Right? Emily agrees. Look, she's saying it too. You've grown apart from your wife, haven't you? I heard your daughter is already 5. Your wife can manage on her own. She's a nurse, right? She'll be fine. Here, this is the divorce papers with your wife's name. It might be easier for you to make up your mind, Mary. Why don't you have William check it? Wait. Okay, here you go. William, huh? What's wrong? The wife's name is Emily. Wait, what? Emily is William's wife? They have the same name? Stop it! Enough already! What? What's going on? What's happening here? Watching the two panic, I couldn't help but burst into laughter. That was too funny. Why is Emily laughing? What's so funny? Hey, Mary. You still don't get it? Huh? What? You're beginning to understand but can't put it into words, right? If you say it out loud, you'll have to admit you were deceived. I've had enough. Tell me. What have I been deceived about? I'm not just the woman next door, I'm his wife. The unattractive, old lady who only cares about her child. The wife you've been mocking all this time, that's me. No way! Didn't you find it strange at all? Why would a neighbor help with a divorce? Collecting photos, what did you think that was for? Didn't you question it even once? Wait. How could I have suspected that? I trusted you completely. You chose to trust blindly. Sure, I lied, but you believed it. I never thought it would work this well. I even wondered if you'd take me seriously at all. You both must have thought you had me fooled completely. Thanks to you, I collected the kind of photos William had. You didn't think such photos existed, right? Since they came from the person involved, of course, I knew. That's awful. You tricked me? Sounds terrible when you put it like that. But, well, you two are more reprehensible. Who cheats on their spouse knowing they're married? Thankfully, there's a system for people like you. I'll gladly use it. Don't mess with me. What you did is the worst. Lying so casually. You just said it, right? It's wrong for children to lie, but okay for adults. You teach Olivia not to lie, then what about you? You're doing the opposite of what you preach. You can't possibly think it's only okay for you. Of course not. I know I'm in the wrong too. But this was the only way. Olivia understands that. Plus, as I showed earlier, your mother and my mother know too. That's what's so annoying. Oh well, it doesn't matter anymore. Look behind you. Huh? Mom? William, you better brace yourself. And with that, William's mother-in-law appeared from behind and slapped William's cheek. Ow! Your pain will heal if left alone. It's nothing compared to the suffering Emily and Olivia went through. Do you even realize the awful things you've done? Hey, who's this lady? You're William's mistress, right? You knew he had a family, yet you still got involved. William is at fault for approaching you, but you could have rejected him. That would have spared everyone this pain. Enough, William. Divorce Emily right now. You've seen the divorce papers, right? Divorce her for Olivia's sake and never show your face at our house again. Why? Why are you rejecting me too, Mom? Emily and Mom have given up on me. What am I supposed to do now? I've lost my place to return to. What am I supposed to do? Hey, William. I'm here, aren't I? We can always be together. So just divorce your wife quickly and let's be together. Shut up. It's all your fault for flirting with me in the first place. I was fully aware I had a family. Yet, you're the one who swayed my resolve. Everything is your fault. What? Are you kidding me? If that was the case, you shouldn't have approached me from the start. And what do you mean I flirted with you? That's ridiculous. You're the one who looked at me that way, right? Well, whatever. I'm over it. Do whatever you want. I don't care about you anymore. Bye. With that, Mary quickly left the scene. Before I knew it, the landlord had also disappeared, leaving just me, William, and his mother-in-law. That's the situation. I've said all I needed to say, so I'm going home now. Oh, William, let me tell you something. Emily has already consulted a lawyer. No matter how much you struggle, there's no escape. Be prepared for that. Come on, Emily, let's go. We need to pack your things. William, go to work. You're an adult. Emily and I will take refuge, so don't expect to see us again. Guided by his mother-in-law, I went back to my apartment to pack my things. Around noon, I received a tearful call from William, who must have gone to the office. Hey, what should I do? Mary reportedly told my boss that I've been harassing her. It's not true, but I'm about to be investigated. What do you think I should do? Hey, do you really think I can answer that? This has nothing to do with me anymore. It's a problem between you and Mary. Oh, by the way, I've been blocked, so can you pass a message to Mary? I've reported everything to your family, so make sure to pay child support. That's awful. That's how it is, so don't call me anymore. Good luck. Wait for me. I hung up the phone mid-conversation and set it to reject further calls. Long time no see. Really, it's been a while, Emily. I'm sorry for all the trouble William has caused. It's okay. It's all settled now, and you're not to blame. I appreciate you saying that. Did you manage to finalize the divorce process? Yes, I managed. William got fired for false accusations by Mary. I thought so. He was ranting about that when he came to our house. He came over even though you told him not to? Yes, he did. But I didn't listen to him and called the police and even sprinkled salt on him. That's so like you. Right? What about that woman? Yes, Mary's parents with her came to apologize to me. That's good. Is Olivia doing okay? Thanks to you, she's doing fine. She's managing well even without William. Recently, he's been away a lot, hasn't he? I wonder if Olivia even cares? I think so. Towards the end, she didn't even ask about her father. That's terrible of William, making his daughter feel that way. He used to be a good father, but what can we do now? I plan to live my life facing Olivia properly. I'm sorry for the trouble. But I'm relieved we can meet like this occasionally. If you ever have any trouble with Olivia, let me know. I'll help however I can. Thank you. Olivia still sees you as her beloved grandmother. I'm a doting grandmother, after all. Occasionally meeting with my mother-in-law like this, we share updates and live happily. I keep Olivia's well-being my top priority and plan to continue living that way. I'll be happy enough for both of us. I can't believe my husband, for some reason, is marrying another woman. You were saving up for our wedding, right? So, that's basically my money, huh? Thanks for saving it all up. Catherine, you're such a great woman. While I'm struggling to comprehend the wedding itself, Tyler just keeps spouting nonsense. It means he stole the money I had been carefully saving for our own wedding expenses. Huh? You didn't know? I tilted my head in confusion. They shouldn't be able to get married so casually. I hope you find happiness, I said with a smile, leaving the detestable wedding behind. But behind that smile was a flame of revenge. I'm Catherine, 26 years old. Catherine, you're so kind, is what I've always been told since I was a child. But in reality, I just can't express my own feelings. My mother always scolded me, be strong. What do you want, Catherine? But I don't even know what I want. I just kept smiling so as not to be disliked by others. Hey, Catherine, your skirt's flipped up. Tyler said that and playfully flipped up my skirt like a gust of wind. Stop it. I held down my skirt and yelled out. My eyes might have been glaring. Success. Catherine can get angry too. That's good. You look cute even when you're mad, Tyler said with a mischievous smile. This all seemed like something out of elementary school, but both Tyler and I were college students at the time. Next time, I want to see you cry. I was blushing. Tyler is a jerk, but for some reason, I was drawn to him. It was the carefree Tyler who broke me out of my always smiling, gentle shell. We started dating after graduating from college. Life with the sociable Tyler was stimulating for me, who had lived a modest life. He'd take me to lively places like nightclubs or summer music festivals. I started staying up late and traveling, which I never did before finishing work and heading straight home. I even enjoyed a moderate amount of alcohol. Tyler and I are complete opposites. None of his friends are as reserved as me. I was worried we were mismatched when Tyler unexpectedly proposed. Are you sure about someone like Catherine? During our engagement party, one of Tyler's drunk friends loudly asked him. Even I was concerned internally about being myself. But I never expected someone else to say it. It meant that even from others' perspective, Tyler and I didn't match. I shrank in embarrassment and sadness, trying to make myself disappear. What are you talking about? If I'm gonna marry someone, it's gotta be Catherine. Tyler's cheerful voice saved me. He chugged a beer and put his arm around my shoulder. See? She's like the traditional wives of old times, right? It's rare to find such a lady these days. I'm the type who wants to be pampered. I may not be a wonderful woman, but I want to be useful to him. I felt my cheeks getting hot. With Tyler and me as the focus, our friends were having a blast, drinking and singing. We drank until late at night in Tyler's small apartment. But really, are you okay with Catherine? Seems kinda boring, you know. At night. As the alcohol flowed, the conversation got increasingly crude. I felt a bit uncomfortable, but slightly tipsy. I believed in Tyler's love. Yet, I was spectacularly betrayed. Yeah, that's my biggest problem. His friends eagerly jumped on the topic. Tyler began to boast about embarrassingly private matters. Despite my pleas to stop. Your wife's not liking this, you know, a friend teased, and Tyler puffed up his chest. I'm not a man who's whipped by his wife. He was even leaning on a female friend. Maybe I should get my nighttime care elsewhere. Tyler and the woman exchanged sleazy glances, seeming not entirely against the idea. Another friend mocked, imitating a woman's voice, this cheater, enemy of women. Anyway, I'm not married to Catherine yet, so cheating's technically not cheating, right? Maybe I should play around more while I still can. Tyler's joking words didn't sound like a joke. He was embracing the woman, clearly crossing a line of friendship. Tyler, you've had too much to drink. Let's take a break. I pretended to be concerned to separate them. Tyler, man, you're the worst. Cheating's not okay, married or not. A friend laughed and lectured. Though they weren't really defending me, Tyler seemed to calm down momentarily. He scratched his chin in thought, nodded, and opened a drawer in the cabinet. What he took out was a marriage certificate. Look, everyone. As you can see, I'm marrying Catherine. I love only Catherine. I would never cheat. He declared it while being terribly drunk, swaying his body unsteadily. We had filled out that marriage certificate right after he proposed. It was decided that our marriage registration and wedding would take place about a year later, on November 22nd. We would start living together after that. As Tyler declared his intention, everyone cheered and congratulated us, and I was immersed in joy. But the warmth in my heart rapidly cooled after that. All right. I'm off. Tyler carelessly stuffed the certificate into his pocket and left the house. Several friends happily followed him. I stayed because many friends were still there. A decision I'd soon regret. Congratulations on your marriage. Just a few minutes later, Tyler and his friends returned, unusually high-spirited. Unbelievably, they had actually submitted the marriage certificate. We'll go to the office together, okay? Our happy promise was shattered by a drunken whim, and the next day, after the friends had left, I silently cleaned the terribly messy room. Empty cans were scattered even to the bathroom, food spills everywhere, a depressing sight. After a while, Tyler woke up, but I didn't want to see his face. As I silently cleaned, Tyler came up to me. Sensing something was wrong. What's up, you mad? It bums me out when someone's not into having fun with everyone. My friends are your friends, right? I wish you'd get along with them. Thanks for cleaning up. You're such a traditional wife, always so considerate. If I'm gonna marry, it's definitely gotta be you, Catherine. Seriously. I love you. I was disgusted by his smooth talk, but felt my heart soften as he embraced me with his large frame. I'm really sorry about last night. I know you're not into wild parties. How about we go for a relaxed date at the aquarium next time? Yeah. Despite everything, Tyler is kind. No use crying over spilled milk. We can just make our wedding day our anniversary. I was thinking of a modest ceremony, but Tyler would probably want to invite a lot of friends. He's the type who wants to enjoy his big day in a flashy way. A wedding is a once-in-a-lifetime event. I want to make it a memorable day that will stay in our hearts forever. I started getting more excited about the wedding. Then we finally booked the wedding. But that's when Tyler's behavior began to change. You didn't really like hanging out with everyone for drinks, did you? You don't have to force yourself anymore. I'll go by myself. Tyler still hangs out a lot with his friends, but he stopped inviting me. I'm grateful, but also worried, because there are many women among his friends. It's okay. I want to go with you. No, you don't have to come. The vibe gets bad when you are around, not getting into the mood. I'm sorry, but I don't like it when you drink until late at night with lots of girls around. Tyler, usually so cheerful, turned serious. What? Who do you think you are? Acting like you own me? If you keep butting in, we can break up right now. I clamped my mouth shut. Is it really okay for us to move forward like this? Are you really okay getting married? Even my mom, who I hadn't consulted, started to worry. Maybe my anxiety was showing. It's okay, I replied with a smile, but my mom didn't smile back. I think he's a really nice guy, sociable. But you're the one who knows him best, Catherine. Don't you think there's something off? You know the saying, keep both eyes open before marriage and one eye closed after. You need to really see Tyler clearly now. It's okay, it's okay. I interrupted her. His brightness, which I lack, is attractive. He's shown me so many new worlds. And don't worry about the wedding expenses. I've been saving up. I'm not a kid anymore, and I won't be a burden to you, Mom. There's nothing to worry about. I didn't want to trouble my always anxious mother any further. I'm no longer a child to be scolded by my parents. Tyler and I will be fine. I kept repeating that in my mind. Then recently, the usually cold Tyler suddenly became kind. Catherine is really a good woman. I blushed at his heartfelt words. I had no doubts that we would smoothly proceed to our wedding. But then one Sunday, I received a strange call from one of Tyler's friends. The wedding started. Aren't you coming, Catherine? Forget the past, let's all drink together. Our wedding was still a long way off. It sounded like a casual invitation, maybe another drinking party to celebrate us. I asked for the location and rushed there. What I saw was beyond comprehension. A real wedding was happening. Tyler, dressed in a tuxedo, was being congratulated as the groom. A rented restaurant was filled with friends, all merry with drinks. As I froze at the entrance, one of his friends cheerfully approached me. You're late, he said. Tyler, in a great mood, frowned. Hey, look, an uninvited woman showed up. Next to him, the bride, Katie. One of his friends laughed loudly. I remember once at a drinking party, Tyler and Katie were getting too cozy. Their closeness was uncomfortable, but now it all makes sense. Looking around the venue, I found Tyler and Katie looking demure. This wasn't a bad joke. It was a real wedding. What's going on? I managed to ask in a shaky voice. Tyler, without a hint of remorse, answered casually. It's a wedding. Huh? You thought we were still dating? You're joking, right? Tyler laughed so hard he held his stomach. Wow, you're really naive. You're perfect for a wedding. Naive and easy to manipulate. Tyler patted my back mockingly. Then he whispered in my ear. I really loved you, you know. Because you're such a good woman. A woman like you, I've never met before. Normally, those would be sweet words, but they felt so sarcastic. But it's boring. You're happy being called a good woman? Hilarious. It means you're convenient, I only dated you for fun, but in the end, you were just about the money. Thanks, Catherine. Your money made this fancy wedding possible. His words hit me like a lightning bolt. Could it be? No, that's impossible. But I couldn't be hesitant anymore. The unbelievable was happening. Did you use my savings? Bingo. Embarrassed, sad, but more than anything, furious. A boiling rage surged up from within me. I'd never hated someone so much in my life. Hey, you were saving for our wedding, right? So, it's my money, right? Thanks for hoarding it for me. You're really a good woman, Catherine. Tyler's words were like a slap in the face. I'll be happy enough for both of us. I understood what Tyler meant. But it was absurd. Huh? You didn't know? I tilted my head and just stated the fact. You can't marry Katie, Tyler looked clueless, making me burst into laughter. He's the naive one. The wedding, more like an extension of a drinking party, was loud, but everyone was dressed up. Me, crashing in casual clothes, must look like a pathetic ex-girlfriend. Tyler's parents, who I met for a marriage introduction just half a year ago, glared at me openly. Couldn't they see Tyler's untrustworthiness? His friends were no different. I realized the absurdity of Tyler's surroundings. Hope you find happiness, I said with a smile, leaving the detestable wedding behind. But behind that smile, I was burning with thoughts of revenge. 30 minutes later, Tyler trudged back to his apartment. I had anticipated this, so I was waiting in front of his place. As soon as he saw me, Tyler lunged at me. Why did you do that? Do what? The marriage. Why am I married to you? He thought I had somehow interfered, so he immediately submitted the marriage registration with Katie at the office. But of course, it was too late. You're the one who got married on your own. You controlling woman. Quiet on the outside, but doing crazy stuff. Tyler, with teary eyes, had a red, swollen cheek. Probably hit by Katie. It's you who did things on your own, Tyler. You're the one who submitted the marriage certificate. Huh? Why would I do such a thing? I thrust my smartphone in Tyler's face and played a video. It showed the day Tyler and I registered our marriage. I'll make Catherine happy for a lifetime. He was shouting something unimaginable in the current situation. A drunk Tyler and his friends had submitted the marriage certificate on a whim. An undeniable fact. And he had completely forgotten about this significant life event. No way! Tyler snatched my phone and repeatedly watched the short video. This video was posted on social media by one of his friends. It was one of those posts that automatically delete after 24 hours. So by the time Tyler and his friends sobered up, it was no longer visible. Reluctantly, but technically, it was our marriage registration day. Thinking it would become a funny story years later, I had saved the video. But the power of self-deception is scary. I never imagined Tyler had forgotten he was married. Love is blind, they say, but my eyes were severely clouded. Tyler, always appearing fun and sparkling, was just an irresponsible, flippant man. Get a divorce quickly. Why should I be married to someone like you? Ridiculous. Tyler started to throw a fit, shifting all the blame. I regretted marrying such a man, but what's done is done. Might as well use this situation. Fine, but I have a condition. Tyler fell silent for a moment. Return my money? An obvious request. But Tyler approached me, face red with anger. Huh? I already spent it. You're such a miser. Like I said before, you were saving for our wedding, right? So, it's my money. Well, the bride changed, huh? When I checked online banking, Tyler had taken over $60,000. This was not just the money saved since our engagement, but what I had been saving since starting work. It's not your money. It's theft, I said firmly. Then a voice came from behind. "It's not theft." Turning around, Katie was there. Tyler quickly covered his swollen cheek, but Katie seemed in a good mood again. They had apparently had a dispute about not being able to marry, but Katie had come back to Tyler. "What? You didn't know? If a family member takes money from another family member, it's not theft." Katie, looking like she couldn't even do multiplication, smugly displayed her knowledge. "Tyler, you're lucky. Being married saved you. Theft is when you steal someone else's money. If it's a husband taking his wife's money, it's okay. The police won't arrest you. There's no reason to return it." Tyler's expression brightened. "Really?" Really, Mom said the same thing when she stole all our savings and ran off with some guy." "What a joke." I didn't see the humor, but Tyler and Katie were rolling with laughter. It dawned on me then, Tyler and I live in completely different worlds, even in what we find funny. "Hey, I want to know something. How did you withdraw the money?" Tyler puffed out his chest and explained. "Remember you told me you were saving money for our wedding? I almost laughed at how serious you were. But then I thought, if you're saving for me, I should take it, right? So, I borrowed your passbook." Tyler had grown bored of me despite our engagement. But he found me useful. When he was being kind to me for a while, he had been searching my room for the passbook. He apparently peeked at my PIN when I was using the ATM. "I see." Tyler bowed his head slightly. "Thanks for marrying me. This $30,000 is like a wedding gift to me and Katie, right?" I asked again, determined. "So how did you withdraw the money?" "I checked the transactions, and it looks like $30,000 was withdrawn all at once at the bank." Maybe Tyler disguised himself as a woman and went to the bank, but that would be too obvious. The only other person who could withdraw the money was Katie. "High amounts usually require ID verification, right? Don't tell me someone impersonated me?" Katie visibly reacted. Then confessed without remorse. "I went in with no makeup and a mask, and nobody suspected a thing. Plain faces have no personality, so we all look the same. But honestly, walking outside without makeup was so embarrassing. I can't believe you show your plain face like that, Catherine. I couldn't stand it." Katie laughed heartily. She obviously didn't have the knowledge she pretended to. "I see, so that means you're also a thief, Katie? Even if Tyler can't be charged because he's family, you're a stranger, so the police would arrest you, right?" Tyler and Katie exchanged a look and murmured, as their faces turned pale. "I didn't do anything. I'm innocent." Katie quickly denied everything. "But I showed them my smartphone. I've been recording everything." Katie's face went pale, and she slumped. She finally gave in and hung her head. "Sorry," she muttered softly. Sorry, please forgive me. I just did what Tyler told me. I didn't mean any harm. We needed money to get married, so I just..." "Don't make it sound like I'm the bad guy. It was Katie who complained about not having money. I just came up with the plan to take Catherine's money." "What? You said Catherine never gets angry, no matter what. This is different. Why do I have to be the thief? I thought Catherine would just sulk and that'd be the end of it. I didn't expect this either." It seemed I had been greatly underestimated. "Enough. This is getting confusing. Just wait, Catherine. Divorce me, and I'll pay you back little by little later." "No way. I can't trust a thief. I'll divorce you any time, but only after you return all the money." Tyler clenched his back teeth. Katie let out a shriek. "Divorce quickly. We can't get married otherwise. I got married to Tyler on his own accord, and I want a divorce too. But only after I get my money back. There's no way we can return $30,000. You are young. If you work hard together, you two can save $60,000 quickly. I did it alone, after all." "We don't have time for that. I'm pregnant." It turned out Tyler planned to have fun before our wedding, but he got his fling pregnant, so I was unceremoniously dumped. Apparently, they had no money, not even for the wedding, moving into a new apartment, or even childbirth expenses. You were really careless to get pregnant. Don't you think about the future? Once the child is born, you can't prioritize yourself anymore. It's not just about having fun, you know? I couldn't help but throw some common sense at the irresponsibly couple. I felt like a concerned aunt. Will these kids be all right? I wondered, feeling pity. The child is innocent, but that doesn't mean I'll forgive Tyler and Katie. Katie, once so bold, started crying, and Tyler lay prostrate on the concrete ground. After that, I turned Tyler and Katie over to the police. Family theft might not be criminally chargeable, but civil litigation is another matter. I wasn't going to let them off easily. Then there was the infidelity during marriage. And since Tyler got his affair partner, Katie, pregnant, I demanded alimony too. I even claimed the cancellation fee for our wedding. I've got no money, why are you trying to milk me dry? Tyler cried out in anger, but I told him, this is how the real world works. If everyone lived as selfishly as Tyler, the world would fall apart. The $60,000 Katie's father fronted was safely returned. With the money returned and Katie showing remorse, she got a suspended sentence. Of course, I'm also demanding alimony from Katie for the affair. Ruining people's happiness for fun? You have a terrible personality. How much money do you want? A heavily pregnant Katie confronted me. I thought she came to apologize, but instead, she said this. It's only right to get back the money that was stolen, and I didn't demand alimony because I wanted more money. Katie, you are the one who did wrong, and you have to pay the money you owe. I responded politely, but Katie just wailed and cried. After getting the $60,000 back, I divorced Tyler. Tyler and Katie apparently got married. But their honeymoon period was anything but sweet. They had no money and were living with Katie's father. He paid the $60,000 and was making sure they repaid it by watching them strictly. Both worked at a factory owned by a friend of Katie's father, not allowed to slack off or enjoy any entertainment. Katie, being healthy, wasn't given a break until just before childbirth. Tyler tried to escape several times, but was caught and returned to this prison. Tyler and Katie blamed each other for their predicament. I heard from Katie's father, who pays me monthly. I wish I could just get rid of a daughter like that. But the unborn child is innocent, and I have to make sure Catherine gets her payments. Katie's mother had run away with family money and a lover, so her father had a strong aversion to his daughter doing something similar. Tyler's parents were unreliable, so I was grateful for Katie's father's help. After such harsh treatment, heartbroken, I returned to my parents' house. I expected comfort from my mother, but she scolded me instead, "Pull yourself together." Tears welled up in my eyes. I had taken my mother's unconditional acceptance for granted. My mother gently hugged me as I tried to hold back tears. Catherine, you're kind. Being quiet and nice isn't bad, but you have to value your own feelings too. I had been putting on a brave face to confront Tyler and Katie. The tears I had been holding back flowed freely. Mom, I'm sorry. It's okay, you did well. I had always been afraid of my stern mother. I avoided her not wanting to be scolded at this age. But she has always been my biggest supporter. I spent some time at my parents' home, feeling like a child again. I ate my mother's delicious cooking to my heart's content and fought with my father over watching sports programs. I wanted to stay with them forever, but I moved out to live on my own. I want to build a new family someday. I've always avoided trying new things, but now I'm determined to actively move forward. Ladies and gentlemen gathered here today, you've come together for me, but I'm not the real bride. At the end of the wedding ceremony, as I declared this while it was time to read a letter to my parents, the room began to buzz. The real bride will be this lady. As I said that, the spotlight shifted to my sister. Ignoring my bewildered parents and sister, I exchanged a knowing look with my friend who's a wedding planner. The ceremony has been sufficiently disrupted, but it's not over yet. I've let my sister have her way all this time, but now it's time for her to face the consequences. My name is Camila Davis. I'm 28 years old, and I started an e-commerce site as a hobby during my student days, which took off, and now I manage the company as its CEO. My wedding was right around the corner. The guy is Leo Garcia. He was a classmate from college, and after he confessed, we started dating and now we live together. Leo works for a company in the city and commutes by train, while I drive to work. Right now, I'm caught up in the whirlwind of wedding planning, with only 3 months to go. Leo usually gets home no earlier than 7 p.m., so I'm the one who handles the meals, since my schedule's more flexible. On weekends, I've got Leo doing chores like tidying up our place and cleaning the bath. I love driving. I find any excuse to get behind the wheel, even on days off. One day, I was about to head out shopping in my car. I'm going with my best friend, Hannah. We've been friends since elementary school, all the way through college. She's someone I can talk about anything with, a truly precious bestie. Today, we've decided to hit up a newly opened outlet mall. It's a bit of a drive in the next state, but we figured we'd enjoy the drive there. I head to the convenience store to meet up with Hannah. Sorry to keep you waiting, did you wait long? Not at all. I just got here and bought myself a coffee. Do you want a coffee too, Camila? Seeing Hannah with her coffee, I felt like having one myself, so I took her up on her offer. Thank you. Then I guess I'll go ahead and ask. Meanwhile, I'll set up the car navigation. Got it. With that, Hannah cheerfully headed into the convenience store. As I went to set the destination on my car navigation, I accidentally hit the history button. When I tried to switch the screen, I wondered, what's this history? And there it was, Hotel Venus Rouge. Of course, I had no recollection of searching for such a place. This is my car, but Leo uses it sometimes too. I figured it must have been him, but didn't dwell on it and continued with the car navigation setup. I set our destination and headed to the outlet mall with Hannah. We took the freeway, and the drive was pleasant with great weather. As we approached an interchange, Hannah pointed outside the window and laughed, "Look, look. It's the Hotel Venus Rouge." What a tacky name for a hotel these days. Venus Rouge, that was the name I saw in the car navigation history. I only glanced over since I was driving, but sure enough, there was a big sign that read Hotel Venus Rouge. Yeah, really tacky, I laughed along, but the fact that the hotel's name was in the history had me concerned. After finishing shopping with Hannah, I dropped her off at her house. Once home alone, I operated the car's navigation system again to check the history. Hotel Venus Rouge, proceeding with the search, brought up the location we passed today near the interstate. It definitely seems to be that hotel. That hotel, no matter how you look at it, was one of those types of hotels. Why did Leo search for that hotel? I decided to pay more attention to Leo's actions going forward. As part of that, I resolved to install a dash cam in the car. I mentioned it to Leo, and he agreed, saying, "That's fine. A lot of cars have them these days, it's good for safety." I was told, in exchange, if you're going to install it, Camila should pay for it. It's Camila's car, after all. Even though it's in my name, Leo also drives it, so I insisted he chip in a little for the cost. The next day after work, I went straight to the dealership and had the dash cam installed. It captures both the front and back of the car as well as the interior. The maximum recording time is 5 hours, after which it overwrites the old footage. I also installed a GPS logger. This device records where the car has traveled using GPS. After Leo used the car, I checked the dash cam and GPS logger. I mainly use the car for commuting, so Leo uses it mostly on weekends. Of course, he always asks for permission in advance. One weekend, Leo asked, "Can I use the car this Saturday?" "Sure, but where are you going?" I asked curiously. "To that shopping mall you went to the other day. A buddy of mine wants to check it out," he replied. Oh? Which friend? Someone I know? Just a coworker who lives nearby. A woman, perhaps? No way. It's a guy, bigger and more muscular than me. All right. Well, bring me back something nice, will you? Got it. If it's a souvenir for you, food would be good, right? Yeah, that would be nice. I'd love something sweet. Got it. And then came Saturday. Leo went out as planned and returned in the evening. I waited for his return and then made the excuse that I had forgotten something in the car to retrieve the memory card from the dash cam and the GPS logger. After Leo had gone to bed, I checked the contents of both the GPS logger and the memory card. The GPS logger confirmed he did go to that shopping mall. But on the way back, he took an exit at the interchange and made a detour. Zooming in on the location, it was Hotel Venus Rouge. He's totally cheating, and our wedding is next month. I can't believe this is happening. My fingers trembled as I thought this, operating the device. Despite the shock, I gathered myself to check the dashcam footage. Inserting the memory card into the computer, I played the recorded content. The first thing to appear on the screen was a long-haired woman sitting in the passenger seat. Looking closely, I realized it was my sister. My sister had always been selfish with bad conduct, practically disowned by our family, and I hadn't seen her for over 10 years since high school graduation. Why were Leo and my sister going out together, even to a hotel? My mind couldn't keep up with all the questions, and I just stared at the screen dazedly. Of course, their conversation was also recorded. You're a bad one, aren't you? Getting married next month, and here you are doing this. And with that, my sister laughed. It's okay, I'm marrying her because she's a CEO, and she's made a fortune at a young age, Leo's voice replied. But does that mean we'll end after you get married? Of course not. You're the one I want. I plan to divorce her in about half a year. Naturally, I'll make it look like it's her fault, take a hefty alimony and a share of her assets. Then, I'll be with you. Really? You'll wait half a year? I'll continue this relationship in the meantime. I can't bear to be apart from you, not even for a day. That makes me happy. I love you, Leo. Me too. I love you, Abigail. I stopped the playback. I couldn't bear to watch anymore. Leo was cheating, spectacularly so. And his mistress was my sister. Did he even realize? Moreover, it became clear that marrying me was all for my wealth, that his proposal and our birthday celebration at a seaside hotel were all just a facade. Why is this happening? Tears blurred the computer screen. The next day, I told Leo the first needed to go back to my parents' house for a while to prepare for the wedding. Leo didn't think much of it and just agreed. Perhaps, for Leo, my absence was a welcome relief. I told my parents that I felt a bit unsettled and needed to stay with them to calm down. They seemed to think it was just pre-wedding jitters and welcomed me back. Since my sister had been estranged from the family, I wouldn't have to see her at my parents' house. A few days later, I received a message from my best friend Hannah. Thinking I could tell Hannah the truth, I told her everything. Hannah said got it. I'll come over today, and we'll drink the night away. Hannah may look cute, but she has quite the old man's spirit in her. But I like that about her. I had told my parents I was having a last single girl party. Before long, Hannah came over, arms laden with booze and snacks. Mom, I'm borrowing Camila for the night. We might get a bit noisy, but please forgive us. She said to my mother as soon as she arrived, with her usual light-hearted banter. Oh dear, making noise is fine, but don't drink too much. Also, I made some stew, so take it with you and eat up. My mother had thoughtfully prepared some snacks for us. Wow, thank you. I was wondering what smelled so good, it's stew. We'll gladly take it. Oh, and is it all right if we invite one more friend over? That's fine, dear. Make it a party to remember Camila. Thank you so much. With that, we called over another friend, Ellie. She was a high school classmate and, as it happens, a wedding planner at the venue we had booked for my wedding, in charge of our ceremony. Hannah and Ellie had also gone to the same high school and had met a few times, so now they were quite close. The three of us started the party. I showed them the dashcam footage. Wait, I'm not sure because I've only seen her a couple of times back in high school, but isn't this person Camila's sister? Yes, and to top it all off, he's cheating with my sister, who was practically disowned by our family. That's awful. Does he know she's Camila's sister? Regardless, it's unforgivable, and we should find a way to get back at him, Ellie said, crushing an empty beer can in her hand. She was always strong on justice, having once caught a groper in high school and turned him over to the police. She was angry as if it were her own issue. Encouraged by her words of revenge, Hannah started talking. Then let's wreck the wedding. I've got an idea. Saying that, Hannah got some paper and started writing something down. How about it? We need Ellie's help. Please, think of it as helping Camila. Of course. I'm the planner for this wedding, so I can do anything. Having Ellie, the planner, on our side is a huge relief. And with that, the plan was in place. I covered the two of them with blankets as they slept off too much drinking, and even though I wasn't sure if they could hear me, I thanked them. I had drunk too much myself, but it had somehow cleared my head. The next day, I returned to Leo's place. A few days after getting back, I executed our first plan. One evening after work, I suggested we go out to eat, met Leo at the station, and we went to a diner in my car and had dinner. Afterward, I dropped Leo off first, then parked the car in the lot and went inside the house. Then, I acted surprised and touched in the living room. Leo, you were planning a surprise for me with this? Huh? Leo let out a strange noise, caught off guard by my sudden comment. This is a gift for me, right? I found it in the car, I said, showing him a shopping bag from a high-end brand. The shopping bag even had the brand name written in big letters on it. I had spilled some coins in the car, and when I was picking them up from under the back seat, I found this. Oh, Leo, you were trying to surprise me by hiding it there, weren't you? Sorry for finding it first, I said with feigned innocence, pretending to be even more delighted. Well, that is... Leo mumbled, fumbling for words. What? It's not a gift for me? Does that mean you have someone else to give something like this to? Don't be silly, there's no one for me but you, Camila. Right, you did buy it for me, didn't you? How much was it, like $4,000? That's a limited edition. It cost about $10,000? It was expensive, but I thought it would suit you. It was meant to be a surprise, but you found it, huh? Yeah, it looks a bit young, but I can still pull it off, right? Of course, any bag would look good on you, Camila. That's hardly a compliment, you know? Sorry. Well, I'll graciously accept it then. Thank you very much. I had to suppress a laugh when I heard his last sigh. In the video I saw at that party, Leo was being cajoled by my sister into buying her an expensive bag. And then, it showed him buying an expensive bag and hiding it under the back seat of the car. I found it and claimed it as my own. He sighed again during dinner later that night. Then a few days later, I got an unexpected call from my dad. It seems like Dad's old habits have popped up again. Out of the blue, he had bought a new car. My father's always been a car enthusiast, having owned many over the years. He said he stumbled upon a used car lot after work and found a car he'd always admired and impulsively bought it on the spot. Dad, you did that without thinking, didn't you get an earful from Mom? A scolding is nothing to worry about. But listen, this is a model that isn't produced anymore. I always wanted this car and I thought I'd never get another chance to own one, so I just went for it. I can't wait for it to be delivered. Really, Dad, what about the car you're currently driving? Oh, that one? I'll give it to you. It's still in good shape, right? Well, I was getting tired of my current one, so that's not too bad. Just sell that automatic car, driving it isn't fun, right? But that's when it hit me. All right, I've decided. I'll switch cars. Thanks, Dad. Good, it's getting delivered next week, so come pick it up then. I'll have it cleaned up for you. Okay. But Dad, don't switch cars again too soon, okay? Don't say that. A man's romance can't be stopped by logic. All right. Thanks, Dad. After hanging up the phone, I couldn't help but smile. And just like that, my car was replaced a few days later. Camila, you changed cars? This one looks cooler than the last. Yeah. Dad bought a new car, so I got his hand-me-down. It's cooler than the previous one, isn't it? Oh, it's cool. It's sudden, but can I borrow it this Saturday? Sure, you can. And on Saturday, Leo took the keys and left, only to come back shortly after. Hey, about that car! What's wrong? Did something happen? No, it won't move. What do you mean it won't move? You drove it just fine yesterday? Because that car, it's a manual. So? What's the problem? Well, my license is automatic only. Ah, right, I forgot about that. It's not funny. Now I can't drive at all. Not being able to use a car is a problem. Why is it a problem? Do you want me to drive you instead? No, that's also an issue. I mean, it's your day off, I can't ask you to drive me around. I don't mind driving, really. Nah, it's okay. I'll figure something out. All right then. Have a good day. How's he planning to manage if he can't drive? This is exactly what I intended. The car I got from my father is a manual. I have a manual license, so it's not a problem for me, but Leo has an automatic-only license. He can't drive that car, neither technically nor legally. I knew he'd been using cars for weekly dates, so I intentionally switched to one Leo can't drive. It's my car, I can switch to whatever I want. And then, there was just 1 week left until the wedding day. I received a call that summoned me. Hello, this is Davis. Ms. Davis, sorry to call you in like this. The person on the other end returned the greeting. No problem. So, what were the results? Well, please take a seat. I'm about to go over that with you. With that, I was shown to a conference room. First off, regarding your request. Yes, this is a detective agency. I had requested them to investigate Leo's conduct. We have secured photos and videos as evidence of Mr. Garcia's infidelity. Would you like to see them? Yes, please. The detective took out a laptop, inserted a USB drive, and started playing the videos. There they were, Leo and my sister, arm in arm, playing around, then entering a hotel. The date and time of the videos were from the Saturday before last, in the afternoon. And there were photos of them kissing, hugging, and such. Thank you. This is sufficient. I took the materials and left the office. Honestly, I knew about the infidelity, but having it laid out like this was still hard. I contacted Hannah and Ellie and we met up at an izakaya, in a private room. I secured a private room and showed them the materials I received from the detective agency. This is bad. Having such clear evidence is impressive, they said in unison. There was no pity left in me. I was ready to crush him completely. Hey Camila, can I borrow these photos? What for? I was planning to make a slideshow for the bride and groom, so I thought I'd include these. With this, all that's left is the main event. Hannah raised her beer mug and toasted, "Let's do this for Camila." I was moved to tears by everyone's effort on my behalf, but I held back. And then the wedding day arrived. As soon as I got to the venue, the makeup and hair setting began, and regardless of my fatigue, everything proceeded as scheduled. When I saw myself in the mirror wearing the white wedding dress, a vision I had dreamed of, the thought of wearing it in such a state of mind almost brought me to tears. My mother wiped away my tears, saying, Now, a bride can't cry like this." "I'm sorry, Mom. These aren't those kind of tears." The ceremony ended, and the reception began. Ellie smiled at me just before we entered. Leo was in high spirits from the start, smiling all the time. I could only manage an awkward smile. The reception went off without a hitch, proceeding as planned. Then, it was time for the bride to read a letter of farewell and gratitude to her family. The room darkened, and only my parents and I were in the light. I was handed the microphone. But I didn't read the letter. I turned to face the guests and began to speak quietly. Ladies and gentlemen gathered here today, thank you so much for joining us. Normally, I would now express my farewells and thanks to my parents and leave to join the man I love. However, the unexpected turn and my speech silenced the room. Ellie gave me an okay sign from the corner of the stage. I am not the real bride. With that, the room began to buzz. The real bride is my sister, Abigail Davis. The groom told me that she is the one he truly loves. I have proof. My disowned sister's name coming up left my parents frozen with shocked expressions. It was supposed to be a moment for a touching letter, so their surprise was understandable when I mentioned my sister's name. When I mentioned my sister's name, light music played and a slideshow appeared on the screen. It showed two people walking hand in hand, kissing, and then entering a hotel in sequence. The music stopped, and the video of that conversation was played at high volume. The venue was in an uproar. What is the meaning of this? The groom needs to explain. Amidst the shouting, I handed the microphone to a pale-faced Leo, bowed to his parents, and left the reception hall. Hannah and Ellie, who had rushed over, pulled me out as if to escape. Behind us, the commotion had become uncontrollable. Still in my dress, Ellie led me to an unused waiting room. Hannah brought my luggage and clothes, and I quickly changed and left the wedding venue. Hannah drove me home in her car, and I finally had a chance to breathe. We did it! Yes, we sure did. Despite the chaos we caused, I felt strangely exhilarated. My parents scolded me quite a bit when they got back, but since Leo was the cause, it wasn't too severe. My father took care of all the aftermath. Although the wedding was nearly finished, since the marriage itself fell apart, we had to return the gifts, but everyone understood the situation, and it was resolved smoothly. Leo had a hard time. His infidelity exposed and the wedding in shambles, he was supposed to pay the entire cost of the wedding, but he couldn't afford it, so his parents paid in his stead. His boss had been at the wedding, so his workplace found out, and it was discovered he used work email to contact my sister during work hours, which led to his demotion. He didn't get fired, but after causing such a commotion, he couldn't continue working as usual, couldn't stand the atmosphere at the company, and ended up resigning on his own. Meanwhile, my sister, the affair partner, didn't stay with Leo after the fiasco and ended up breaking up with him. Since the engagement had gone as far as the formal exchange of betrothal gifts, I broke off the engagement and demanded alimony and other expenses from Leo. Since Leo had almost no savings left after preparing for the wedding, his parents ended up paying in his stead. Leo, lacking any particular skills, found it difficult to secure full-time employment again. He's now working part-time to repay his debts. Naturally, I also demanded compensation from my sister, the other party in the affair. It's a sad story that our first meeting in a long time was for a demand for compensation. My sister, who didn't have enough money to pay the alimony, apparently turned to our parents for help despite being disowned. My parents, furious about her part in ruining my marriage, naturally refused to help. So, my sister borrowed money from some dubious place. She is now working in the nightlife industry to pay it back. After my colleagues at the company heard about the incident, they suggested I take a break, so I decided to take some time off and go on a trip to a place akin to Hawaii. Ellie had resigned from her job at the venue, feeling accountable for her involvement in the fiasco. Feeling a bit guilty, I invited her to come with me on the trip. With the alimony from Leo, I could afford the expenses. While we were dining out there, we happened to meet two guys also on vacation, and we got along well, exchanging contacts and agreeing to meet up again. They worked at the same company and apparently took trips every year. When I got back to New York and told Hannah about it, she got mad at me for not inviting her. So, we decided to set up another meetup, adding one more person to the mix, making it a 3-on-3 group date. Despite all that had happened, the trip helped me recover my spirits. Life is full of surprises, and I'm ready to firmly walk towards the future.
All right, everyone's presentations are done. Nick, the manager, said as he tried to move the discussion forward. Excuse me, I haven't. I recently found out something. Nick interrupted me and began to speak. There's apparently someone in this department who didn't graduate high school and is just a part-timer. Meetings should be for employees only. Absolutely right. His lackey, Mike, of course, agreed with Nick. I'm leaving. After leaving the meeting room, I started to shut down my computer. I noticed that an email had arrived, not in my personal inbox, but in the company's shared email. Thinking, there's no point in speaking up, no one will listen, I went home quietly. The next day, I heard a commotion from Nick's desk. He was staring at his computer screen, his face pale. Nick? Is something wrong? Mike looked at the screen with him. And he turned even paler than Nick. Why is he so angry? Knowing the reason for Mike's distress, I thought to myself, serves them right. My name is Adam. My mother passed away when I was in the 9th grade, and I was raised by my father. Well, you could hardly call it being raised. After my mother passed, my father changed. He drowned his sorrows in alcohol, and though he still went to work, he squandered our living expenses on horse racing. Because of that, I had to start working part-time as soon as I entered high school. Every month, I went to the convenience store with bills in hand that couldn't be auto-deducted from my father's account. Even though I endured it because I didn't want to be alone, I reached my limit in my second year of high school and dropped out. I found a live-in job at a distant inn. Thank you for everything. The day I left home, my father, still staring at the TV, spoke. Take care. That was our last conversation. Back then, 18 wasn't the age of majority, so I needed my father's permission to work, and I couldn't hide my place of employment. Yet, my father never visited me even once. I kept working just to survive, and before I knew it, I was 42. Years of hard work paid off, and I was transferred to the headquarters. I was thrilled to be recognized by the company, as I thought I'd be working in the field until retirement due to my lack of formal education. Listen up. Our work can change the future of our employees. Don't drag us down. On my first day after the transfer, Nick, dressed in an expensive suit, spoke sternly. There was a reason for this. Our inn was located in a prominent tourist destination, known so well that everyone in the state could sing its commercial jingle. At its peak, we had 5 locations within the state. But that was long ago. Due to financial difficulties and aging facilities, only the place where I had worked for many years and the original establishment remained. I was prepared to lose my job anytime, but now there was a glimmer of hope. With the rise of social media, the tourist area where the inn was located started gaining attention again. Depending on how hard the sales department, where I was transferred, worked, we could either thrive or be forced to give up this prime location to the new hotel chains continuously popping up. For Nick, who had switched careers from another industry to strengthen our sales, this was a battle he couldn't afford to lose. I understood why he had to be strict. I will do my best. Nick sneered at my enthusiastic declaration. Did you not hear what I said? I'm sorry. I thought I was listening carefully. Out of habit from years of customer service, I apologized reflexively, though I had no idea what had offended him. Someone was watching me with a smirk. In this department, there are those who are expected to excel and those who have been shoved here because they have nowhere else to go. You are the latter. It was Mike, the section chief. He's 7 years younger, at 35. But he was called to headquarters much earlier than I was and had been moving around within the headquarters ever since. I'm not jealous, but I can't accept that he's my boss. Graduating from a prestigious university, he has an unusually high pride and caused many problems as a newbie, making things very difficult for me when I was the front desk leader. When I found out Mike was transferred to the sales department a month before me, I was disheartened. Mike is right. With just a middle school diploma, there's not much you can do. Don't even think about achieving results. As if I didn't exist, Nick remarked, "I'm thirsty." Mike eagerly ran to the coffee maker. It seems Mike is Nick's lackey. I regretted being happy about my transfer to headquarters, wishing I had stayed on site forever. Send a direct mail to every company on this list by the end of the day. Nick only assigned me tasks that even a new graduate could handle. What? There are over 1,000 companies. You want me to send to all of them by today? Yes, if you and your fellow misfits split the work, even those with nowhere else to go should finish by today. I glanced at the employees typing away expressionlessly. They were worn out from customer service, only thinking about leaving on time, or were women reassigned after having children. With zero motivation for work. Even Sam, a new graduate from the same university as Mike, who was supposed to be among the expected achievers, had no enthusiasm for the job. Having joined the company wanting to do customer service. I don't care what they say, I plan to quit any time, he said. Only Nick and Mike were highly motivated, making all the decisions between the two of them. I originally only wanted to work at the inn to survive and had no particular attachment to this job. I swallowed my words, thinking I had no right to reprimand them. About a month after the transfer, Nick told us with a frustrated look. To commemorate the 50th anniversary, we've decided to create a plan exclusive for one group per day. Originally, Mike and I were supposed to come up with it, but our president, Mr. Thompson, insists on hearing everyone's opinions. So, you all get a chance. As Nick explained, Mike began handing out prints. Make sure not to embarrass Nick. If your ideas are half-baked, you'll have to redo them. It seemed that they had printed his handwritten notes by Mr. Thompson, which included several questions and a section for free responses. It made sense why Nick had to seek our input, given that all responses had to be submitted to Mr. Thompson. We were given a week to think about it, and a meeting was scheduled to compile our ideas. My plan is to let guests enjoy both the old and modern America. Nick began the presentations. Guests would watch a master confectioner at a nearby traditional sweet shop make sweets in front of them. The welcome drink would be premium tea in a bottle. Nick's plan was certainly attractive. After his presentation, Nick called on us to present in the order we were seated. Just as I stood up for my turn. All right, everyone's presentations are done. Excuse me, I haven't. I recently found out something. Nick interrupted me. There's someone in this department who didn't graduate high school and is just a part-timer. He was likely talking about me. I joined the company as a part-timer and was made a full-time employee when I turned 20. That was 20 years ago, so Nick and Mike probably had no chance to know until recently. Meetings should be for employees only. Absolutely right. After that, Nick kept creating opportunities to solicit everyone's opinions, purposefully excluding me from speaking. The meeting unexpectedly heated up and went past the scheduled end time. A few people asked to leave, and the discussion continued with the remaining few. Still here? Normally, you'd leave in that situation. Though I had no attachment to the job initially, hearing kind words from customers made me want to make them happier. For someone like me, with nowhere to go, the inn was my home and customer service was my life. I felt pathetic about my current self. I'm leaving. I left the conference room and started shutting down my computer. I noticed an email had arrived, not in my personal inbox, but in the company's shared email. Thinking no one would listen to what I had to say anyway, I quietly went home. The next day, while preparing the DM as instructed, I heard a commotion from Nick's desk. In his haste to stand up, he hit his knee on the desk. He stared at his computer screen, his face pale. Nick! What's wrong? Mike, thinking he should be the first to rush over, approached Nick while still wearing his coat. He peered at the screen with Nick. And he turned even paler than Nick. Why is he so angry? Who is responsible for this company? Nick, more irritated than ever, asked, and Mike answered without checking. Probably Sam. Sam wasn't there because he was attending a morning training session for new hires. Nick gave up on getting angry and returned his gaze to the screen. They were looking at an email that arrived right after the end of the working day yesterday. Apparently, no one, including me, had checked it before leaving. The email was from a large company that used us for their annual employee trips. The president and executives of that company also frequently used our services personally. president of the company, Mr. Mason himself, had declared that neither he nor his company would ever use our services again. Well, some companies cancel their employee trips or stop using our services due to financial struggles. Let's just move on. Mike kept wiping the sweat from his forehead with a handkerchief. Knowing why Mike was so agitated, I quietly watched their interaction. Do you know how much revenue we get from that company? We can find other guests to fill the rooms, but we'll lose the banquet costs, gift shop revenue, rental car fees, and more. Moreover, the gifts were supposed to be prepared by the traditional confectionery shop involved in Nick's proposed plan. If it's known that we incurred such a huge loss at this critical time, Nick's position in the company would be jeopardized. Nick took a deep breath, seemingly trying to calm himself. All right, Mike. Go to New York right now and apologize to Mr. Mason. What? You're coming with me, right? I have urgent work to do. I trust you, which is why I'm entrusting this to you. Please. Mike, believing Nick's sincerity, agreed with a determined look on his face, saying, yes. That's Nick for you. Even if Mike went to apologize, Nick would shift all the blame onto him if the client didn't change their mind. Well, it was Mike's fault to begin with, so it served him right. About 3 hours later, Sam answered a call from somewhere and repeatedly apologized, saying, I'm very sorry. Everyone watched to see what was happening. After ending the call, he informed Nick with a weary tone. When Mike arrived at the client's company, he only made things worse, further infuriating Mr. Mason. He was demanding, get his boss here immediately. It was no wonder Sam was exhausted, dealing with such a call right after returning from training. What is that idiot doing? All right, Adam, you're coming with me. If sacrificing Mike didn't work, then I must be next. Normally, I'd want to refuse at all costs, but I saw an opportunity in this situation. If I can be of assistance, I'd be happy to join you. I obediently followed Nick, and we flew to New York. When we introduced ourselves at the reception, it became clear how serious the situation was, as the receptionist personally escorted us to the president's office. Angry voices leaked through the door, making both Nick and me uneasy. Excuse me. I'm Nick, the supervisor. I understand my subordinate has caused you trouble, and I deeply apologize. Nick, with his experience in the corporate world, knew enough to offer an apology before excuses. However, his customer service skills left much to be desired. I sighed as I saw Mike trembling like a small dog in the corner of the room. What kind of training are you giving your subordinates? Mr. Mason glared at Nick with a red face. The intensity of his gaze made even Nick take a step back. Regrettably, I joined this company only 2 years ago and was unaware of Mike's issues. I should have identified his shortcomings sooner. Indeed. I should have realized sooner. No sensible person would come to apologize and then give a lengthy presentation on the drawbacks of not using their in. Nick froze, his mouth slightly open. Suspecting the worst, I picked up the documents that had fallen to the floor. It seemed Mike hastily prepared these documents on the plane, listing the disadvantages. Disadvantage 1: if you change the venue for the company trip, employees might suspect it's for cost-cutting reasons, leading to a negative impression. Reading it aloud half-jokingly, Nick snatched the papers from my hand and checked the contents with a furious expression. Among the stack of documents was a receipt from a nearby convenience store's copy machine. I felt a pang of dread, hoping he hadn't shown the receipt as well. What do you think he said when I asked what kind of nerve he had to do this? I'm very sorry. Faced with the dire situation, Nick must have thought there was nothing left to do but apologize. In a voice smaller than I'd ever heard from him, he uttered words of apology. He said, I'm a Harvard graduate. I don't believe I said anything wrong. Mike, what have you done? Forgetting his plan to pin the blame on Mike, Nick yelled loudly, even in front of Mr. Mason. I didn't do anything wrong. You're still saying that? Look at him. Mike pointed at me with a shaking hand. I was assigned to headquarters in my 20s and now I'm a section chief. This guy only made it to headquarters at 42. Everything I've done proves I was right. So why are we losing the contract? Having said his piece, Mike collapsed to the floor. Of course. You were sent there because you had nowhere else to go. Mike never expected to hear such words from someone he looked down upon. He lunged at me, and Nick hurriedly stepped in to stop him. Mr. Thompson told me Mike is a quick thinker, and to take good care of him. There's no way he was pushed aside. Don't make things worse here. He didn't say quick thinker, he said only quick-witted, didn't he? I don't remember that part. I recalled the many troubles Mike caused when he was a newbie. When Mike was on the front line, his pride was so high that he never apologized to customers. Customer service, especially in our job, doesn't work alone. It brings both good and bad situations. If the front staff or housekeepers made mistakes, or the cleaning company didn't properly clean a room, one had to apologize to the customers regardless of personal fault. Mike, in such situations, would never apologize, insisting he wasn't at fault. This often angered customers, and as the front desk leader, I frequently had to apologize on his behalf. He caused complaints and disrupted operations, which is why he was quickly moved to headquarters. In departments where he didn't interact directly with customers, his quick thinking was beneficial and things went well. But it seemed his flaws were starting to show. Corporate reservations are supposed to be entered into the system by the sales representative. But a quick check yesterday revealed that more than 10 items were missing from the client's reservation. The handover document clearly stated what needed to be prepared. Why didn't you enter it into the system? Why do we have to give them special treatment? Filling rooms near the banquet hall, setting up all the food in advance. Specifying the brand of wine, they're too demanding. No wonder he always angered customers, I thought, feeling a headache coming on. Grouping them in rooms near the banquet hall is for our benefit too. It makes it easier for the staff to set up beds and serve breakfast since everyone's schedule is synchronized. As for the other requests, Mr. Mason suggested them to lighten our load. I didn't know that. Nick finally seemed to realize that Mike was the one who had angered the client. What did you say to them? I just told them we wouldn't give them special treatment anymore. We shouldn't waste effort on things that don't bring in money. I was utterly exasperated at his lack of understanding of customer service. Of course, we shouldn't comply with unreasonable demands. But carrying over successful practices from past stays makes customers feel remembered and enhances their experience. Good memories encourage repeat visits. That's part of our job. I looked down at Mike, who was sitting on the floor. In our job, nothing is a waste. Mr. Thompson likely moved you to the sales department, hoping you'd finally understand this. How do you think he feels now that you've failed to meet his expectations? Mike, tears in his eyes, fled the president's office. I was amazed he still hadn't apologized. You have it tough, Adam. It's okay, we're all employees of the same company. I deeply apologize for this disrespectful incident. Especially after all the care you've shown us. If it weren't for you, Adam, I really would have stopped staying here. When I heard you were moving to the sales department, I was willing to reconsider if you handled it. Seeing us talk so amicably, Nick's face contorted. Do you two know each other? Adam's service is excellent. I always requested him specifically. Normally, we don't accept specific staff requests, but we made an exception for Mr. Mason, adjusting my shifts accordingly. He had personally stayed at our hotel just before my transfer, and during casual conversation, I mentioned, I'm moving to the sales department soon. If I hadn't told him then, things could have been much worse. Please continue to take care of us. I look forward to it. On the return flight, Nick awkwardly offered me a can of beer. It's still working hours. Of course, I had no intention of forgiving him for a single beer. Nick might try to pin everything on Mike and avoid any consequences. While pondering this, a startling fact came to light. Nick, the tea bottles for the plan have arrived. I handed Nick a bottle labeled with our inn's name. They look good. What are you talking about? These are plastic bottles. I had assumed we would use the trendy, high-end bottling tea. But what arrived were ordinary plastic bottles of tea with customized labels. The only unique aspect was the label, which had the inn's name, making it look customized. Upon further investigation, I discovered that a substantial amount of money was set to be paid to the tea company. It was priced like bottling tea. Does this plastic bottle really cost $100 each? The tea inside is specially blended for us. The extra cost is for that. Wouldn't it be better to use another tea company? Or is there a specific reason we must use this one? As Nick continued to make excuses, I showed him a printed email. I informed the tea company's president, Mr. Mitchell, that we discovered irregular payments and he confessed. He said you two were high school classmates and planned to split the extra money. That idiot. Why did he confess? That's not important. You should worry about yourself, this could turn into a police matter. Opening the bottle cap, I suggested. How about calming down with this tea? It supposedly has a relaxing effect. Nick drank the tea frantically. In the following days, decisions were made about their fates. Mike was reassigned to the General Affairs Department, with no chance of transfer or promotion, as per Mr. Thompson's orders. As for Nick, since the payment to the tea company hadn't yet been made, he narrowly avoided legal trouble. Instead, he was encouraged to leave the company, and to avoid further complications, Nick submitted his resignation. Rumor has it that connections between HR departments have made it difficult for him to find new employment. Even though it was good to have those two gone, something unexpected happened in the sales department. Everyone became motivated and united in refining the 50th anniversary plan. In the end, my plan was adopted. We collaborated with the Tourist Information Center to provide personalized guides. The plan, tailored to the number of guests, was truly special for the 50th anniversary. Hey, is Adam's family coming to stay? I immediately booked that special plan for my family. Sam noticed it on the reservation list and quickly picked up on it. Yes, I'm inviting my father. That's great. I might invite my parents too. I lacked the courage to face my father just as Adam. But here, with the confidence Mr. Mason praised, I felt ready. The 50th anniversary plan was a perfect opportunity to reconnect with my father. I hoped to bring back the days when we could laugh together as we once did.